Chapter 5:12. Souls were like sowing seeds, and they could always harvest some food. Demons did not know how to farm like the devils and obtain souls from other races. Therefore, the cannon fodder of the Abyss army was still from those lower creatures. Dretches were like another kind of kobold. They always liked to run around like a swarm of bees. They had the most powerful leader. They were afraid of strong enemies but liked to bully weak enemies. Finally, under the cruel law of survival of the fittest in the Abyss, they gradually grew into cannon fodder that could set foot on the battlefield. As the first layer of the Abyss, the Plain of 10,000 Abyss was a place that was easily affected by the Abyss War. The area here was very large. Therefore, there were a lot of cannon fodder here. Dretches were more often used as laborers, and occasionally, they would be driven to the battlefield by high-grade demons to consume the enemy's firepower. There were hundreds of millions of dretches in the Abyss, but less than 1% of them could advance from dretches to quasits. As for those who could advance to flaming demon, the low-grade form of flame demon, succubus, vrak, and hezru, there was less than 1 in 10,000. There were too many types of demons. In the Abyss, only those who had reached the level of 6-armed Marillion were considered to have entered the ranks of high-grade demons. There was very little food on this barren plain. Occasionally, some animals could be seen, but they had been demonized. Even the rats had dark red pupils and sharp fangs. The newborn Dretch slowly moved forward. The innate memory of the demon was awakening. Just like the bloodline of a sorcerer, demons would gradually master some spell-like abilities. Squeak. A little strange sound came, followed by the appearance of other Dretches. The low perception affected its judgment. The newborn Dretch stopped and waited for the enemy to appear. 5 Dretches appeared in front of it. The one with dark red skin was the leader, and the other 4 were the slaves it had subdued. The Dretch had the lowest level of Summon Demon ability. The one with dark red skin in front of it was a Dretch that had completed its evolution. What is your name? The Dretch leader in front of it seemed to have a cunning expression. It ordered its subordinates to surround the newborn Dretch in front of it. The newborn Dretch did not have much fear. This was not in line with the nature of a Dretch because the enemy had an obvious advantage in numbers. It looked at the Dretch leader in front of it and said slowly in a slightly low voice, "So long. Demons needed slaves, a lot of slaves. Any slave could be sold to others at a high price, as long as they weren't caught as slaves." The bottomless abyss was a very chaotic place. Night witches and onababas were often seen on this plain. They were very stingy, evil, cruel, and scheming creatures. However, if you could get their promise, then they would most of the time keep it. Night witches and onababas would provide slaves and servants for various powerful demons in the abyss. Sometimes they would use abyssal worms as currency, but most of the time they would choose Dretches. Over the years, the business level of the bottomless abyss had also been increasing. Sauron. Submit to me. The dark red Dretch leader looked at the lone Dretch and said in the demon language, "As the servant of Fornicat, you are the servant of Fornicat. This way, we can obtain more food and power." The Dretch leader tried his best to convince the other party. As long as the other party agreed, they could sign a simple contract and sell it to the Onababa. That was how it got its power. Sometimes, the Onababa who traded with it would even say that it should be reincarnated as a devil instead of a demon. Submit? A mocking smile appeared on the corner of the newborn's mouth, which made the Dretch named Fornicat angry. After several transactions, it had become one of the most powerful Dretches in the area, so it decided to teach the newborn a cruel lesson, and then sell it to the Onababa as a slave. The Dretches next to it were ready to fight. A lone enemy really stimulated their desire to fight. Roar! The first Dretch rushed over. It waved its sharp claws and wanted to cut open the enemy's stomach. But before it could get close, the enemy had already dodged its attack, and then its claws pierced its eyes and cut its throat. Blood gushed out, and the battle seemed to have just begun, but it was already over. A row of data appeared in front of it, extracting target's demon blood. You've gained 1 point of demon power. Current body cannot absorb soul energy. Soul energy conversion. Feedback 10 slaughter EXP to the body. Demon blood activated. A mutation occurred in his own body. Dretch, form ability improved. Claws treated as +1 natural magic weapon. Sauron stared at the enemy in front of him. As if a force was integrated into his body, a dark red luster appeared on his sharp claws, which looked like metal. The mutation of a demon was so amazing that he completed a mutation in just a short time. Not good. One of its companions died in the blink of an eye, which made Fornicat feel a little scared. The Dretch was originally a very timid creature, so it ordered, "Kill it. Let's go together." 2 Dretches roared and rushed up. But their leader, Fornicat, turned around and ran, disappearing in the blink of an eye. It seemed that he was much faster than the other Dretches. They were betrayed. When the 2 Dretches found out that they had been tricked, they had no chance to escape. Sauron jumped gently and cut their throats with his claws. Although his body size had changed and his attributes had decreased, his combat skills were enough to crush these Dretches. He was not interested in wasting too much time in this place. If he wanted to evolve into a more powerful demon form as soon as possible, he must hunt more of his kind. Name, Sauron. Race, demon. Form, Dretch, Grade 1, Attributes, Strength 12, Agility 10, Constitution 14, Intelligence 9, Wisdom 11, Charm 11. Alignment, Lawful Evil. Note, other demons will be slightly hostile to your actions. Demonic Power, 3 out of 100. Skills, Sneak 75, Listen 50, Detect 50, Search 20. Ability, Demon Claws, +1 natural magic weapon. Sauron looked at the data page in front of him for a long time before saying to himself, "So weak. It's a pity that I can't give divine power and divinity. Otherwise, I can directly challenge the lower demons. Next time I create a god's avatar, I must make a body with all attributes 18+. The demon body could not absorb slaughter EXP, Sauron did not know why, but as a demon, he could absorb demonic power. The evolution of the Dretch's ability and future mutation were all obtained by the accumulation of demonic blood. Slaughter was the simplest way to evolve. As long as he accumulated enough demonic power, Sauron could change his body into another form. What a strange ability. He looked at his claws with a metallic luster and murmured, "The mutation and plasticity of the demonic blood. It's completely different from other creatures' genetic abilities. It's so easy to mutate, and even transform into another form. I really don't know what kind of power was used to create the demons. No attributes, no abilities, no skills, no divinity, no divine power. Sauron's body, except for his soul, memories, and combat skills, did not inherit any part of his body, not even a trace of power. Therefore, he was starting from scratch. But it was also because of this that no demon overlord could discover his secret. This demon body was like a piece of white paper. It was born from the bottomless abyss, and all its power was provided by the bottomless abyss. Only white paper was easy to draw. Sauron felt that his consciousness was much sharper. The demon form could not absorb slaughter EXP, and it seemed that he could not level up like his body. After all, this was just an avatar. But it also had its own advantages. Every time he killed, he did not even need to accumulate enough power to level up. He could feel a slight improvement in his ability. His senses were enhanced. After killing 3 Dretch, he had a +1 natural magic weapon and a slight enhancement of his senses. The demonic blood was really amazing. Chapter 5:13. The War Chess Plane. When Soren heard the name, he immediately remembered the encounter with the demigod Jin in the Frost Kingdom. At that time, it also mentioned the war chess game. It seemed to be a simulation game that was popular during the Arcane Empire and had a wide influence. The Arcane Empire had a very glorious civilization, and there were some very popular entertainment activities in it. The war chess game seemed to be one of them. However, this didn't seem to be a simple game. Looking at the structure of this plane, it was possible to play this game to death. Do you want to get rid of it? Fallen Witch's voice sounded in the minds of the two. She communicated telepathically. Although the Thaling has legendary combat power, it won't be difficult for the three of us to deal with it together. Soren glanced at her and shook his head slightly. Wait. After that, a faint light appeared in front of his eyes. This was a special ability after having the appearance of a god. Combined with his previous detection ability, he could roughly analyze some of the enemies. Soren felt a trace of divine power from the Thaling in front of him. This Thaling 13 was definitely not a simple creature. It could be regarded as the manager of this plane. Extracting one divine power point. Performing data analysis and simulation on the target. Analysis completed. Obtain some information on the target. Name, Thaling 13, activated Thaling, demigod Jinn, virtual divinity, race, alchemy construct. Level, 20 activated construct Thaling level 5 demigod Jinn, level 5 arcanist, grade 7, ability, unknown. Domain, unknown. Alert. 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 Target creature has a virtual divinity in the plane. Divine template activated. Calculating virtual divinity. Target creature has a virtual divinity of lesser divine power. Soren's heart skipped a beat and immediately said, "Don't do it. The target has a virtual divinity. It's the manager of this plane. Here, it can mobilize the power of the entire half-plane to deal with us. I'm afraid our chances of winning are not much." It was actually a demigod. Soren instantly realized what kind of divine power he was familiar with. The Thaling in front of him was actually infused with the divinity of an elemental spirit when it was created. He wondered what kind of arcanist would be able to create a Thaling of this level. However, it seemed that it had been assimilated by this plane. If such a non-divine unit wanted to have a virtual divine persona, it could only be done by fusing itself with the laws of the entire half-plane. It seemed that its creator used it as an assistant to manage the half-plane. The virtual divine spark was a power that came from the outside world. Many demon lords had virtual divinity, mainly because they had assimilated a part of the power of the abyss. This ability was only effective in the bottomless abyss. Once they left the abyss, they would lose this divinity power. Some powerful spellcasters could also temporarily have a virtual divine spark, but it was only limited to the half-plane they created. If they forcibly fused with the virtual divine spark, they would be imprisoned in the half-plane. It was equivalent to being regarded as a part of the half-plane. Although they had great power, it was difficult for them to leave here. Perhaps the Thaling in front of them could not leave this half-plane. Otherwise, with its ability as high as level 30, it would have already entered the wizard tower in the shadow plane. Asterisk whoosh. Asterisk a faint red light appeared. Thaling 13 turned its eyes to Soren and said in a calm voice, "Are you ready to challenge me? Challenging me is the most difficult task. After defeating me, you will get the plane key, and become the master of this half-plane. But I don't recommend you to do so. When I was created, I was a demigod. Now, I am the manager of the elemental pool. Here, I have the power of lesser divine power. The success rate of you challenging me is less than 3%. I suggest you to challenge me at normal difficulty. Kingdom of God." When Soren heard Thaling 13's words, the first thought that popped up in his mind was a kingdom of God. Gods were almost invincible in a kingdom of God. This was because unless the kingdom of God was destroyed, the power of the gods was almost endless. The demigod Thaling in front of them was a similar existence. This half-plane was its kingdom of God. It directly controlled the elemental pool of the half-plane. All the power was under its control. As long as the elemental pool continued to operate, its power would be endless. The most effective and simple way to deal with it was to break the half-plane from the outside and destroy it. What should we do? The three people present looked at each other and seemed to be thinking about how to deal with it. They knew almost nothing about this half-plane. But since the original master of this place had fallen, it should be operating according to the way it was set in the past. Perhaps they could find a chance to do so after they understood more about this half-plane. Let me try. Soren glanced at the teleportation circle in front of him and said to the two beside him, "You guys always pay attention to the surroundings. If there is anything unusual, immediately take action." Gloria immediately nodded and said, "Okay." The two legendary witches were ready to fight at any time, as streaks of magical light emerged. Soren looked up at Thaling 13 in front of him. From beginning to end, it was very calm. When Soren stepped on the teleportation circle, it said in a cold voice, "The war game begins. The number of challengers is 1. The challenger's strength is at the legendary level. The difficulty of the challenge is automatically set to the highest level. Thaling 13 will take over the command. Activate the tactical simulation map." A strange light appeared. Soren's figure disappeared and directly appeared in the circle formed by the stone pillars. Then, he felt the world around him spin. When he opened his eyes, he was already in another world. No. This wasn't his body. Everything was fake. As a god, Soren instantly understood the essence of this space. He saw his own body through the mist in the sky. His body was standing on the magic circle in the center of the stone pillar. The body he had now was just something like a dream, or something more mysterious and incomprehensible to him. "How is this possible?" Gloria exclaimed and couldn't help but murmur, "What ability is this? Why is this happening?" In their sight, a half-real, half-illusory world was rapidly forming. Its area could be said to be quite vast. It was probably the size of a country. However, in this half-plane, it was only a mirror image. Soren's figure was still standing in front of them, but another him seemed to have appeared in a dreamlike country. This is a simulated dream world. The high priestess figure appeared in front of them through the teleportation circle. She said with a serious expression, "This is the ability of the Arcane Empire's tactical simulation. It's a kind of war chess game that can be used to create realistic illusions. It can be used in many ways." After realizing that this half-plane wasn't simple, Soren immediately asked her to come over through telepathy. Although her power as a psionic warlock didn't rely on research like a wizard, from the situation when they fought against the Queen of Spiders, the High Priestess also knew a lot of things about the Arcane Empire. Tactical simulation. The High Priestess had learned this knowledge somewhere before. She thought that this ability was long lost, but she didn't expect to see it again in this half-plane. In front of her was a very strange ability that was very close to a realistic dream. It was more advanced than the one she had encountered before. It was a virtual world that directly extracted the power of the half-plane. Challenge begins. Tactical simulation map creation completed. After completing the challenge, you will gain partial access to the first layer of the war chess plane. Thaling 13's eyes flashed. It said in a cold voice as if it was narrating, "You're an ordinary civilian. You were born in a quiet and peaceful village, but suddenly the peace was broken one day. A fallen wizard passed by here and summoned a terrible demon. He sacrificed the whole village to the demon. The fire burned everything. Your home turned into a sea of fire. There were slaughtered corpses everywhere. You could hear the demon's excited laughter from afar. You're faced with a difficult choice. Stay here to protect your home, or leave this place and stay away from danger. The enemy is a powerful demon, and you're just an ordinary person." Along with the calm narration, everything in front of Soren's eyes changed rapidly. There was a raging fire in front of him. He could faintly hear the sound of fighting. There were many slaughtered corpses on the ground, all of them were ordinary civilians. Occasionally, he could hear the screams of panic on the other side of the village. Soren stood in front of the gate of the village. He could escape from here if he went forward, but he had to face the demon if he went back. The scene in front of him was a bit similar to when Soren first met the Jinn. At that time, the first test he gave Soren was a multiple-choice question. Now, he was facing the same multiple-choice question. Soren still looked the same. It was just that he was wearing simple clothes and had no weapons in his hands. He looked just like an ordinary civilian. The power he had seemed to have disappeared. Soren could not feel the explosive power contained in this body. Everything in the dream was so real that he could raise his hand and touch it. He felt that his arm was not strong. In the flickering flames, a group of dretches appeared. They found Soren standing at the entrance of the village and made strange noises. Then they rushed over like a swarm of bees. Chapter 5:14. There were not many living creatures on the barren plain. A dretch came to the hill and looked at everything in the distance. After standing in place for a moment, it said to itself, "It's really not easy to do two things at once. Even with my god-level ability, sometimes I don't feel used to it. No wonder other gods rarely send their avatars. I don't know how those professions with true mirror image operate." Sauron continued to walk towards the plain. Soon, he encountered a new enemy. It was still a group of messy dretches, but they were eating. The food was black rats and a pile of abyss worms. Abyss worms were not only born near blood pools. After the soul fell into the abyss, it would automatically transform into other forms. Many abyssal plains did not have blood pools at all, but there were still abyss worms. The number of these wild abyss worms was not small. They wandered on the barren plain and had a small chance of becoming a dretch. Night witches and hags liked to collect these abyss worms because their alignment was neutral evil, and they could transform into dretch and lesser demons. When low-grade demons lacked servants, they would spend a little power to transform the abyss worms into the lowest level of lesser demons. Demons valued quality more, and the abyss worms were only used as a substitute currency. The strange dretch quickly attracted their attention. The dretches who were eating tore the bodies of the abyss worms, and then some rushed toward Sauron. They did not know why, but they hated this dretch who looked like a demon. Note: lawful evil alignment. Poochie. Blood splattered out of the wound. In front of Sauron, two dretches quickly fell. His basic attributes were not good enough, so he had to kill more dretches as soon as possible. A series of data prompts appeared in front of his eyes. When Sauron killed all the dretches, a new round of mutation began. Demonic power gathered on his body, and soon a row of data appeared in front of him, extracting targets' demonic blood. You've gained 2 demonic power. Current body cannot absorb soul energy. Soul energy conversion. Feedback 30 slaughter EXP. Demonic blood activated. A mutation occurred in his own body. Dretch, form ability improved. You have obtained the innate ability, Demon Skin. Damage reduction +5. You've obtained the innate ability Dark Vision, 20 meters. His skin became tough, and his gaze penetrated the darkness. The mutation of demons was so simple. Sauron still could not analyze the potential of the demon bloodline, but he knew that it was a mysterious knowledge even to the gods. Sauron's body turned dark red, and there was a glimmer of light in his eyes. His power has not reached the complete form of a dretch. Sauron glanced at the corpses on the ground. He did not find any weapons or valuable items, so he quickly continued on his way. Part of the soul energy was fed back to the main body, but the proportion was very small. It could only be said that it was better than nothing. They walked like this for a while. Footprints began to appear on the ground, indicating that there were more creatures nearby. Sauron suddenly stopped and hid in the grass. In front of his field of vision, under the darkening sky, a distorted figure appeared before his eyes. The petitioner. The distorted souls wandering in the abyss were different from the petitioners who entered the kingdom of the gods. Many of the petitioners in the abyss were bad guys who did all kinds of evil in their lives. Evil souls fell into the abyss, but they did not turn into abyssal worms. Because many petitioners were professions when they were alive. Perhaps their profession level was not high, but it also made their reincarnation power much stronger. A wandering petitioner. He should be a soul from the material world. Because he was not completely assimilated by the power of the abyss, he now became a creature called a soul, Manes. The spirit in front of him had pale skin, jet black claws, razor-sharp teeth, loose hair, and pale eyes. His face was slightly rotten, and he looked as disgusting as the undead. Many maggots could be seen crawling in the bloated body of the soul. If he survived long enough, the power of the abyss would gradually assimilate him. Eventually, the soul might be promoted to a low-grade demon, although they would completely lose the memory of their previous life. The soul retained a small part of the memory of their previous life. They were the undead demons wandering in the abyss. Soul, the Petitioner, Grade 2. Challenge rating, Level 3, Personal Level, 6, Spell-like abilities. Highest and lowest attributes, 18 and 6, total attribute points, 75 to 85. Special abilities, Fire Resistance, Acid Resistance, Poison Resistance, Lightning Resistance, Acid Spit. Challenge difficulty, C+. It was a wandering spirit. The power it provided was enough for Sauron to directly advance into the complete form of a Dretch. But Sauron was not in a hurry to launch an attack because he was currently only a low-grade Dretch. All his power remained in his body. He only inherited the strong willpower brought by the soul. If he died, he would have to pay a heavy price. It was a gamble to integrate himself into the abyss in this way, and he must not make the slightest mistake. He approached in stealth. Because he did not have the level of a rogue, he could not get the blessing of the shadow. Sauron could only approach in the lowest level of stealth. The smaller size of the Dretch provided him with convenience and a natural dodge advantage. After all, the smaller the creature, the harder it was to hit. He gradually approached the soul in front of him and then rushed out in an instant. Shoo! The sharp claws streaked across the air like a sharp dagger, instantly slicing open the spirit's abdomen. Demon claws were equivalent to +1 natural magic weapon. The howling wind sounded, and the soul counterattacked in an instant. The rotten limbs swung down. It wandered in the wilderness without a weapon. Bang! Sauron's body flew out, but the injury was not serious. The demon skin that he had just acquired had 5 points of damage reduction. In short, even if an ordinary adult with ordinary strength punched him, he would not feel anything. This was the natural ability of demons. Even the lowest Dretch could have some of it. With 14 points of dexterity, Sauron still had the advantage of speed. His legendary combat experience made it difficult for him to be hit by the enemy, even if there was a large gap between them. The wounds on the Petitioner began to increase. Sauron seized the opportunity and rushed over. He waved his sharp claws like a dagger and pierced into the opponent's eye. The sharp claws penetrated and then directly twisted. Plop! The body of the soul fell to the ground. A data display appeared in front of Sauron's eyes, extracting the power of the abyss. You've gained 10 points of demonic power. The current body cannot absorb soul energy. Soul energy conversion. Feedback 120 Slaughter EXP. Demon bloodline activated. A mutation occurred in his own body. Dretch, form ability improved. You've gained the talent ability, Demon Resistance. Fire, strong acid, poison, cold resistance increased by 10 points. Demon bloodline awakened. You've automatically learned the spell-like ability, Summon Demon. Demon bloodline awakened. You've automatically learned the ability, Multi-attack. Demon bloodline awakened. You've automatically learned the spell-like abilities, Fear, once a day, Stinking Cloud, once a day. Demon bloodline awakened. You've automatically learned the talent ability, Telepathy. The demon bloodline began to change violently. A mysterious demon tattoo appeared on Sauron's dark red body. This was some kind of incomprehensible power. Many demons had such strange tattoos on their bodies. It further strengthened Sauron's power and made him reach the real strength standard of a Dretch. As the lowest level of demons, Dretches also had many good abilities, including Demon Skin, Demon Resistance, Demon Summon, Multi-attack, and a few spell-like abilities. In this case, his challenge rating was raised to 2, and a team of level 2 adventurers was needed to fight against him. Chapter 5:15. Flames danced in front of him. Soren looked at the dretches in front of him and ran in another direction without hesitation. Without strength, weapons, and equipment, he was just an ordinary person. It would be difficult for him to even deal with one dretch, let alone a large group of them. Because of some reasons that he could not tell others, he now had a fairly clear understanding of the strength of the dretches. With his current civilian body, he probably could not even withstand the dretch's stinking cloud. Constitution is only about 10. Strength is also about 10. Dexterity is slightly higher, but it should not exceed 14. After running a few steps, Soren had a rough estimate of his attributes. He was at the level of an ordinary person. Not to mention dealing with these dretches, he might not even be able to defeat a warrior who had just advanced. As for escaping from the village, Soren basically ruled it out. First of all, he was quite reluctant to run away without fighting. Secondly, it was already dark. Looking at the road, he knew that this village was not near the town. It was a dense forest outside. With his current physical fitness, even if he did not encounter any monsters outside, a beast could kill him. He didn't have dark vision, so he couldn't see anything in the pitch black outside. Weapon. I must find a weapon first. It was impossible to kill a dretch with just his fists. Soren would probably be cut open if he touched its sharp claws. He had the best fighting skills, but without a weapon, it was impossible to kill a dretch. There were flames everywhere in front of him. The battle on the other side of the village was still going on, but the sound of resistance had weakened a lot. The area of the village was not small, and it was estimated that there were hundreds of people living in it. Many houses were already on fire. Soren could not rush in to find a weapon, and he might be blocked by the dretches chasing after him. There must be a blacksmith in such a village. Soren quickly looked around and said to himself, the primitive environment determines that they need to be self-sufficient, and blacksmiths are the key to maintaining their daily lives. The scenery around him quickly passed by. After sprinting for 100 or 200 meters, Soren felt tired, but he finally saw the furnace of the blacksmith. Sure enough, this remote village still needed a blacksmith. Soren rushed into the blacksmith, but the next moment he was a little dumbfounded. Kitchen knife, sickle, hoe. There was no long sword, no curved sword. The sharpest weapon Soren could find was a freshly forged kitchen knife. Other than that, the blacksmith's shop had a sickle and a newly assembled hoe. He could not even find a hammer. He did not know if it was taken by the blacksmith or not. It seemed that Soren still had high expectations for the blacksmith shop in such a village. A blacksmith who could forge weapons would not be in such a remote village. At first glance, the blacksmiths here were the kind of blacksmiths that satisfied the needs of ordinary villagers. When they were free, they would make 2 kitchen knives and sickles for them. I don't care so much. Soren gritted his teeth, picked up the new kitchen knife, and slashed at the dretch in front of him. I can't run anymore. My stamina is not as good as these demons. The more I run, the more I can't hold on. Clang! The kitchen knife collided with the dretch's claws. Then Soren was a little dumbfounded because there was a gap on the kitchen knife. Damn! At this moment, even Soren couldn't help it. He used to have a decent weapon, even a dagger would be fine. But why was there a gap on the kitchen knife? Poochie! Blood splattered. Even with a kitchen knife, Soren still cut open the stomach of the dretch in front of him. If it weren't for the fact that his weapon was too weak and his strength was only at the standard of an ordinary person, he could probably kill the dretch in front of him. Whoosh! The blood stimulated the demon's desire to attack. A swarm of dretches rushed over and drowned Soren in the crowd. Damn it! Soren suddenly opened his eyes. With a burst of terrible pressure, invisible waves of air raged out. He gently stomped his feet, and the ground within a radius of 20 meters around him completely cracked. With a loud bang, the 20-meter-high stone pillars collapsed directly. The light on the magic circle gradually dissipated. With just a gentle stomp, Soren even destroyed the magic circle under his feet. Thaling 13 frowned slightly and said in a cold voice, "Challenge failed. Please don't destroy everything here. Otherwise, I will treat you as an enemy." It gently waved its hand, and the cracked ground gradually closed. The collapsed stone pillars rose again, and the magic circle under Soren's feet reappeared. Sure enough, everything here was under its control. Otherwise, it would not be able to mobilize the power of the half-plane at will. Soren was a little tired. But there seemed to be a fire in his heart. He said in a deep voice, "One more time. I just wasted a little bit of time because I just entered." It was simply unforgivable that he died in the hands of a dretch. As long as he had a sword, even if it was an inferior long sword, Soren had more than 50% confidence that he could kill these dretches one by one. But this woman only had a kitchen knife. What was the point of fighting? Soren was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. A god died in the hands of a group of dretches. He wanted to hang the person who designed this battle chess challenge. Thaling 13's expression was still calm, and it said slowly, "Challenge failed. Your spirit has entered a state of weakness. Forcibly entering will cause your spirit to weaken. Please wait for 48 hours before you challenge again." But the 3 ladies next to you can try to challenge. The light of teleportation appeared. Soren's figure returned to the original place. There seemed to be no change, but his spirit was very tired. Incredible ability. Even Sauron, who had the power of law as a god, could not figure out what means the original creator of this place had used. Unless they cracked the secret of this half-bit wall, it would be difficult for them to figure out the key. Should we try too? Gloria's expression seemed to be a little eager to try. As a spellcaster, she was very interested in this mysterious means, especially since it belonged to the mysterious knowledge of the arcane kingdom. She wanted to experience what it was for herself. The high priestess shook her head slightly and said, "You too can try. It's not suitable for me to enter this place now." She was still injured. If she entered and failed the challenge, the high priestess' injuries would be much more serious. The light of 2 spells appeared. Gloria, who was eager to try, and Fallen Witch, who was also curious about the knowledge of the arcane empire, entered the half-plane. Everything in front of them changed again. It was the same world that Soren experienced, but the 2 witches were the main characters. About 5 minutes later, Gloria's figure appeared on the magic circle. Her expression was indescribably gloomy. She silently bit her lips and came to Soren's side. It was rare for her to use a voice like a little girl who was wronged. "I don't have any spells at all." The result was self-evident. About 10 minutes later, Fallen Witch's figure also appeared on the magic circle. She came to Soren with a pale face and said in a low voice, "There's no way out from the outside. There's a wizard guarding outside. It's a dead end." Obviously. Soren and Gloria both chose to stay in the village, and Fallen Witch did not hesitate to choose to leave. It seemed that the result was the same. Thaling 13's expression was still very calm. He said in a cold voice, "Challenge failed. Everyone, please go back. You're welcome to come again after you've recovered. What you've just experienced is only the first level of the war chess challenge. After the challenge, I'll open the first level of the half-plane to you. Of course. If you have any dissatisfaction with this challenge, you can also choose to challenge me directly. If you defeat me, you'll get the control of the half-plane." Thaling 13 gently waved his hand. Along with the fluctuation of the elemental power, a huge elemental pool could be faintly felt. Then, an elder of the earth element, an elder of the fire element, an elder of the wind element, and an elder of the water element appeared behind him. The surrounding stone statues also seemed to move and turned into tall stone statues. At this time, Thaling 13's expression was still very calm, but for some reason, it was very annoying. Chapter 5:16. Under the quiet night sky. After leaving the wizard tower in the shadow plane, Soren could not help but let out a long sigh. Gloria's figure came to his side. The loose wizard robe could not cover her proud curves. On the contrary, the complex and mysterious runes added a touch of mystery and elegance to her. Her silver white hair fluttered in the night wind, and her white neck was like a white jade under the moonlight. Gloria stood side by side with Soren and gently reached out her hand to hold Soren's palm. She held it tightly and felt the other party's temperature. Under the moonlight, the two people's reflections overlapped. Fallen Witch stood not far away and watched silently. Her expression seemed to be a little complicated. After a long time, she slowly turned around and left. Gloria turned her head and looked at Soren's side face. She leaned her head on his shoulder and whispered, "What do we do now?" Soren took a deep breath, looked at the dim starry sky, and murmured, "Now we can only take one step at a time. If it doesn't work, we can only accumulate strength to defeat the demigod Thaling." The challenge in the war chess plane was simply too difficult. The projection did not inherit the power of the real body at all. If an ordinary person fought against a powerful demon, the chance of winning was probably less than 1 in 1,000. He really wanted to hang up the person who designed the challenge and beat him up. At present, he could only wait for the next challenge opportunity. Soren still made a mistake today. He hesitated for 3 seconds after entering the war chess challenge. If he could find a place to hide in these 3 seconds and avoid the sight of the group of dretches, then he could get more chances. For a long time, Soren was used to planning before acting. If he had more than 50% confidence, then he would decide to make a move. In the war chess world, he might not even have 10% confidence. He had never encountered this kind of battle before. This was also a kind of training for him. Because sometimes he could not have more than 50% chance of winning every battle. Perhaps he could take this opportunity to train himself. Fighting against a much stronger enemy required not only strength, but also wisdom and courage. Actually, now that he had calmed down, Soren's train of thought seemed to have many directions. For example, he could ask for help from others. It was obvious that there were others who were fighting against the demons. In a village with hundreds of people, it was possible for there to be low-level priests. In order to defend against wild beasts, there must be professionals who retired. Even from an evil point of view, it was not impossible to communicate with the enemy. Dretch may not have much wisdom, but it was possible to communicate with the evil wizard in the dark or summon demons. However, this required a high level of negotiation ability, acting ability, and top-notch deception ability. Soren pondered for a moment. Fighting seemed to be the most suitable thing for him. The night passed quickly. The expansion of the city of Mordor had been completed by 1/5. The slaves from Treasure Island had sped up the progress a lot. Many of the first batch of slaves had gained new identities. They had become Soren's tenants. They worked for Soren and farmed for Soren. Although they had to pay heavy taxes, after a year, these tenants could still survive and save a little property. The biggest difference in the city of Mordor was that everyone had the opportunity to climb up, but these opportunities were only for those who were willing to work hard and sweat. The military parade was still in preparation, and the drows were busy training them. It seemed that there was a split among the drows. Some of the drows had completely moved to the city of Mordor, while the other part remained in their original place. What a group of stubborn females. Soren did not pay much attention to them now. If these female drows were not willing to submit to him, then they would be left to fend for themselves. In fact, there was a very obvious feminist ideology in this world. The two most obvious groups were the drows and the Amazons. The deep-rooted ideology that had been passed down for thousands of years made them extremely resistant to submitting to men. If it weren't for the fact that he had too many things to do, sometimes Soren really wanted to teach them a lesson. Everything in the city of Mordor was on the right track. With the protection of the gods, all the residents felt very relieved. The powerful force of the city of Mordor was the guarantee that brought them peace. Because peace was never bragged. Peace was fought with force and war. As a new god, Soren still had a lot to learn. Although divine power was a powerful force, his own strength was still very important. Soren began to learn complex arcane knowledge. He was going to improve his Arcanist level during this period of time. It would be best if he could master 1 or 2 legendary spells. With the ability of the gods, he learned very quickly. When he mastered the divine ability of arcane proficiency, in the future, Soren's ability would improve even faster. In the blink of an eye, another day had passed. On this day, Soren was going to make a bold attempt, that was, to take this opportunity to travel between planes. Whether as a god or a legendary figure, Soren had the qualification to travel between planes. However, because he could not leave the city of Mordor for the time being, Soren chose to travel by astral world tour. Projecting himself into the astral plane to see how mysterious this multiverse was. Everything had been prepared. After night fell, Soren came to the center of the array. With a little divine power, he activated the astral projection array. Divine power was so useful. No wonder many gods paid more attention to improving their level. As the embodiment of the power of the law, divine power could be transformed in almost any aspect. Before his divine power was exhausted, he didn't even need to use the spell slots. A faint light of magic emerged. With a slight sense of dizziness, Soren's figure appeared in the endless void. The bright galaxy appeared in front of him, and in front of him was a huge material plane. Every time he saw the complete appearance of the material plane, it was so shocking. This was a vast and boundless plane. Its outer layer was the plane barrier. At the bottom of the material plane, there was a passage connecting the 4 major elemental planes. He didn't know who created the material world, but he was sure that he definitely had a very strong power. Soren walked in the void. Because he was only a projection here, he could move easily with his mind because his body was only a spiritual body. Below the endless void was a mysterious dark matter. It was like a vortex formed in the void, rotating at an unimaginable speed. Occasionally, mysterious silver-white dust could be seen, but Soren didn't know what it was. There were too many secrets in the astral plane. It was connected to all the planes. The material plane, the shadow plane, the spiritual world, the underworld, the upper plane, the lower plane, the elemental plane, countless half-planes, and so on. Occasionally. Here, he could see the huge ancient god's body, as well as the terrible gods who were exiled. Everything the gods saw was so wonderful. Soren walked under the stars of the multiverse, and he felt more and more insignificant. All of a sudden, he seemed to see something and couldn't help but tremble. A planet. He definitely didn't see it wrong. A planet flew past his sight and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Soren seemed to have seen many planes. This was the first time he saw a structure similar to a planet. He couldn't help but be very surprised. From the god's point of view, it wasn't impossible to shape a plane into the shape of a planet. It was just that it required more energy, more power, and more time. According to his memory of Earth, 71% of the surface was covered by the ocean, which represented the power of the water element. The basic structure of the whole planet was the Earth, which represented the power of the Earth element. The inner core of Earth was magma, which represented the power of the fire element. The last thing that covered the whole planet and protected it was the atmosphere, which represented the power of the air element. Water, fire, earth, and air. This was the basic material of the multiverse. Almost all the planes were supported by the power of the elements. As for where the elements were born, it was a mystery that even the gods didn't know. Soren could no longer see the traces of the planet, but he knew that it really existed. He just couldn't be sure if it belonged to the material plane or some other kind of plane. Without a doubt. Its surface was huge, and it had existed for a long time. Chapter 5:17. In the Endless Void. It was rare to meet other people in the astral plane, but Soren seemed to have met one. It was a traveler in the astral plane. There was no air or gravity in the astral plane, so a projection was the easiest way to travel. However, even a god would have to consume a lot of energy to travel in the astral plane. Soren met a lich. As an undead creature, many of the restrictions in the astral plane didn't matter to it, although there was a saying, legends are as common as dogs, and liches are everywhere. But in fact, this was the first lich that Soren met. Liches were generally very powerful spellcasters, and many of them could fight against gods. The one in front of Soren seemed to be wandering in the astral plane, and it seemed to be collecting something that even he couldn't understand. It was a strange dust that emitted a faint silver light. It probably came from the material plane, or some extension of the material plane. Soren couldn't tell where it came from with just a glance. He only knew that it was at least level 25 since it could wander in the astral plane so easily. Your Excellency. Facing Soren's projection, the lich in front of him seemed very relaxed. Soren's divine aura couldn't be hidden from it. It bowed slightly to Soren's projection to show its respect and said slowly, I'm glad to meet a god here. With its strength, it wasn't strange for it to meet a god. Soren wasn't a threat to it at all, because a projection only had a small part of the original strength. Moreover, as a lich, it had a phylactery. As long as it wasn't stupid enough to participate in the Abyss Blood War, it could rely on the phylactery to revive itself if its body was destroyed. Sometimes, even gods couldn't do anything about it, unless they had mastered the divine domain of death. Only then could they destroy the lich's body and its phylactery at the same time. Soren nodded slightly and looked at the lich in the astral plane. Both of them didn't seem to want to talk. After confirming that there was no hostility between them, they passed by each other in the astral plane. If the projection died, the original body would be injured and weakened for a period of time. The lich did not seem to want to offend a deity either. It was holding a strange alchemy tool in its hand, which was continuously absorbing the weak silvery white dust in the astral world. After knowing that Soren was far away, it let out a sigh of relief. It quickly put away the tool and opened a portal. The astral plane was a very dangerous place. Battles often broke out here. Even though it was a lich, it was still very surprised to meet a god. Soren did not stray too far from the material plane. Because he still had to put part of his energy in Motor City and another place. It was possible to encounter the corpses of ancient gods in the astral plane. These corpses still had a lot of power left in them. For gods, they were very dangerous and full of opportunities. This was because the corpses of the oldest gods had very powerful divinity. They were gods that no longer existed in the records of time. They were also the creator of the Lord of Hell, Asmodeus. These ancient gods fought with the primitive demons born from the source of chaos. Some of them died in the void of the multiverse, and their corpses had been preserved until now. The power of the primitive demons polluted Asmodeus and led to his complete fall. As the best warrior of order in the endless years, Asmodeus finally broke with the gods and evolved into the Bator Inferno. The fall of Asmodeus directly led to a considerable number of ancient angels falling into hell. Some had died in the endless bloody battle of the abyss, and some still remained in the deepest part of the Bator Inferno. But the blood of the fallen angels had spread to every layer of the Bator Inferno. The reason why Soren chose to enter the abyss and never considered entering the Bator Inferno was that the space of the Bator Inferno was very limited, only 9 layers, and the competition was quite fierce. He had to obey the rule of Asmodeus. On the contrary, the abyss was chaotic, and the space was quite vast. Although there were many powerful demon lords, there was no absolute ruler. Chaos represented opportunity, and it represented the possibility of Soren's rise. Actually, this was Soren's first time roaming the astral world. He had a little bit of hope that he would be favored by the goddess of luck, or that he would be like the child of the plane, suddenly meeting an ancient god's corpse in the astral world. Unfortunately, compared to the huge planes, the ancient god's corpse was still too small. In this practically boundless void of the star dimension, the probability of encountering them was simply unimaginably low. Soren had always thought that he had the ability to help himself absorb the large amount of divinity left on the ancient god's corpse, but the problem was that it was very difficult for him to find it in the astral world, which was quite mysterious even for the gods. The last time someone met an ancient god's corpse was a very long time ago. Soren prepared to go around the astral world in the material plane. There were many things of great value in the astral world, and the key was whether he could find them or not. This place was connected to all the planes. Sometimes, he could even meet a meteorite flying by. It could be a complete diamond structure, or some kind of metal that could be directly used to forge rare weapons. Since he was already here, he might as well go around a few more times and try his luck. In the laboratory, Gloria was busy analyzing the experimental data. Occasionally, she would turn her head to look at the new Thaling ET-1, who was standing next to her and helping to record. Compared with the Thaling 13 she encountered in the war chess plane, the one created by Gloria was too weak. Whether it was her own combat ability, the computing ability, or her own wisdom, the gap between the two was simply thousands of miles. This made her even more curious about the knowledge of the Arcane Empire. She really wanted to know how much fascinating knowledge there was to be able to maintain the operation of a huge floating city. Light footsteps could be heard. Fallen Witch's figure appeared outside the laboratory. She held a thick book in her hand and gently pushed the door open. "Mother?" Gloria stopped the experiment in her hand and turned to look at Fallen Witch. She slowly said, "What's the matter?" The two's laboratories were separated. Under normal circumstances, her mother rarely came over at this time, so she was a little confused. "Take a look at this." Fallen Witch handed the thick book to Gloria with Mage's hand. She quickly turned to one of the pages and said softly, "This is the information I found about the bloody war in the abyss." Gloria took it doubtfully. There was a large paragraph of text on it. In the years before civilization was recorded, the bloody war in the abyss had already broken out. At that time, the river Styx was still just a stream. The Grey Wilderness, the Scorching Inferno, the Shura Realm, and other planes had not been completely formed. The Bator Inferno was still the world of the ancient Bator, and the Yugros had just been born. The bloody war in the abyss lasted for countless years. The existence of Asmodeus made the demons completely rise. The balance of the war seemed to be in a stalemate. From the plane of 10,000 abyss, the Blood Fissure, the gap between the abyss and Bator was also the largest battlefield. Avernus, the Grey Wilderness, the Scorching Inferno, and the Shura Realm, there was no place that was not a bloody battlefield. Tens of millions of demons fought here. Every time, countless demons died, and countless inferior demons and dretches were born under the laws of the plane and continued to fight. The Yugros, Anababas, Night Witches, these evil and neutral creatures benefited from both sides of the bloody war. The Yugros Chamber of Commerce exported to Bator from the abyss rich resources from countless abyss levels, and imported various weapons and equipment made by demons from Bator to the abyss. Bator had countless factories, the largest weapon production in the lower realm, and many places in the chaotic abyss did not even have a weapon forging business. The Yugros also monopolized a part of the boatman business on the river Styx. If it were not for the fierce competition between the Yugros, Night Witches, and Anababas, their commercial power could make the multiverse pale in comparison. When Gloria saw this, she raised her head in confusion. She had seen some of the things above before. For the bloody war in the abyss that had existed for countless years, any powerful wizard should have some understanding. However, the Fallen Witch shook her head gently and continue reading. There were many words behind, but the main point seemed to be only a part, an ancient time period. Millions of coalition forces composed of Yakos and angels joined the bloody war. In the end, only 3,000 people were able to return to the upper realm alive. This fiasco made the heavenly creatures more cautious and careful when dealing with the lower realm. Let the demons fight, and the upper realm also lost the desire to interfere too much in the bloody war. As a result of this failed expedition, the heavenly creatures were divided into the order and chaos camps. In ancient times, many gods of order and gods of chaos participated in the bloody war. A god of the chaos camp died in the bloody war. What was even more frightening was that the gods who died in the bloody war could no longer be resurrected. They were completely finished. So most of the gods chose to withdraw from the bloody war. At most, they sent some servants and believers to participate. In addition, if they participated too much in the bloody war, their divine power seemed to be absorbed by the bloody war. There were also rumors that even if the Lich died in the bloody war, it was more likely that the phylactery would be destroyed. This made many powerful beings who cherished their lives more cautious. Even the demon lords and the Duke of Hell rarely took the risk to fight in person. The fallen witch suddenly said at this time, "Look at the last paragraph." The last paragraph? Gloria continued to read in confusion, and soon she couldn't help but tremble. Of course, it's different for those demons who want to advance or those who want to rely on the bloody war to become stronger. This is one of the fastest ways to become stronger. As long as you survive, you may be able to absorb the power of the enemy you killed. A Dretch of the lowest level may directly evolve into a powerful Hezru after a bloody battle. Even if it survives a few more bloody wars, it can advance into a 6-armed snake demon, assassin demon, Baylor demon and other higher demons. If it is lucky enough to kill a very powerful being. That may mean that there will be one more demon lord in the abyss, or a demon duke in the Bator Inferno. In the long history of the abyss, occasionally, there are some extremely powerful and lucky existences who killed the gods in the abyss bloody war. This may allow some people to become one of the gods in a very short period of time. No one knows what kind of rules and power the bloody war contains. But it seems that it is the only place where anyone may be on par with the gods in the shortest time. The slaughter is endless. Abyss Bloody War, Volume 3, Chapter 16. Gloria silently closed the book, turned her head, looked at the fallen witch with a complicated expression, and said slowly, "Why are you showing me this?" The fallen witch was silent. After a while, she slowly said, "Soren's power. From a weak mortal, he became a deity in such a short period of time. I can sense too many secrets from him. No one has ever risen like a comet like him. What you just saw is the greatest possibility I can think of. He has a power similar to the bloody war in his body. I don't know where this power will lead him to." Gloria stood still. She quietly looked at her mother, and her expression was still calm. She just said in a firm voice, "No matter what the future will be. Since I have chosen him, I will always stand by his side and accompany him to the end." "Mother. It's getting late. You should go back and rest." Chapter 5:18. As summer came, a warm monsoon blew in Arendelle. Except for the mountains covered by snow all year round, the whole of Arendelle was full of vitality. Winter wheat had sprouted and grown, and the fields were green with spring. Spring here came later than in other places. Because they only sowed once a year, the residents of the Frost Kingdom obviously attached great importance to cultivation. In addition to winter wheat, they would also plant some other cold-resistant crops. On this day, a group of outsiders arrived in Arendelle. They were dressed in neat armor and worn cloaks. The silver-white mottled armor reflected light in the sun, and occasionally residents who encountered them would bow their heads humbly. This was a group of paladins from the outside world. Unlike the cities they had been to, they rarely encountered any help in Arendelle. Even the lowest of the poor just bowed to them to show respect. What happened in the City of Wealth did not repeat here because Arendelle had its own laws, and these laws had been strictly enforced. This was the rich and prosperous Arendelle, and there was a great and noble princess royal here. The purpose of the paladin's trip was to ask for help. There were very few people in the world who had the ability to repair the Holy Avenger, and the Princess Royal of Arendelle was one of them. Because she was a divine sorcerer, a powerful spellcaster with divine power. The dock area. The young paladin walked on the streets of the dock area. He didn't know when it started, but he liked to visit the slums in every city he passed by, because in his opinion, those were the places that represented the civilization of a city and a country. He liked Arendelle because it was the most vibrant city he had ever seen, second only to Mordor where his companions had just brought back the news. If there was a chance in the future, he might go to see Mordor with his own eyes to see if it was really so orderly and peaceful there. The Battle of the Underdark had been over for a long time. Although his strength touched the edge of the legendary realm and he had the ability of a perfect body, he still could not break through the boundary of the legendary realm. Because he had not yet found his own field. Courage, faith, sacrifice, justice, fearlessness, protection, order, kindness. He was a little confused. He did not lack courage, nor did he lack faith. He was more willing to make sacrifices, but he still could not find the core that would allow him to break through. Because if he wanted to master the paladin's domain power, he had to find his truest self and his most sincere faith. That was the power that was branded in the depths of his soul. The young paladin had already made a vow of poverty. As the chosen one of the Holy Avengers, he would not marry or have children for the rest of his life. He would not leave any wealth behind. Except for weapons and equipment, he would use all his wealth to help the poor. He would refuse any comfort and pleasure. He would fight to maintain order and uphold justice until the moment of his death. He stood on the verge of becoming a legend. He had a very strong premonition that as long as he crossed this barrier, he would truly have the power to fight for his faith. People were coming and going on the pier. A little boy sitting on a wooden stump attracted his attention. The young paladin seemed to have felt something. It was a kind of pure soul power. Thus, he walked over. The young paladin squatted in front of the little boy and saw a trace of envy in his eyes. The little boy looked in a certain direction with longing eyes. It was a noble young man in a luxurious wizard robe. Noticing the arrival of the paladin, he turned his head gently but did not speak. He was wearing shabby clothes, which meant that he was born poor and might be the child of a dock worker. The little boy looked at him calmly, with a trace of curiosity and respect. The young paladin smiled and said, "Birth is the arrangement of fate, but the future can be created by yourself. Do you believe in justice?" The little boy's expression was a little doubtful, but he still nodded gently. The young paladin smiled. He pressed his palm on the little boy's forehead, and a holy and pure power emerged. Holy baptism. Holy blessing. Arendelle, Royal Palace. Princess Royal sat on the throne and looked down. She held an invitation letter in her hand. This invitation letter came from the south coast, from a place called Mordor. She gently rubbed her forehead and looked out of the window. Princess Anna stood on the balcony, looking into the distance. Her face seemed to be a little haggard. As the first successor of Arendelle, because of the early death of her parents, Princess Royal had always been like a sister to Princess Anna. Now Princess Anna looked like this, which she did not want to see. But it was difficult for her to accept that man, even now, because as a warlock, she felt a lot from him. Blood, killing, death. Some power that she could not understand yet, but it was very dangerous. She did not want Princess Anna to be involved. There was a guard outside the door reporting that a group of paladins from other places seemed to want to see her. Princess Royal's attitude towards the paladins was neither good nor bad. At this time, she was not in the mood to see them, so she ordered them to wait first. The appearance of the paladins must be something. Whether it was good or bad, it was very troublesome. She did not have the energy to care so much now. What she was most worried about now was Anna, and she was also hesitating whether to accept the invitation of Mordor. Because once she accepted the invitation, Arendelle would be on the same side as Mordor, which was an attitude to other forces. On the balcony, Princess Anna was holding a delicate cloth doll in her hand, which looked 70 to 80% similar to Soren. Her expression at the moment was a little sad. The girl squeezed the cloth doll hard, and while squeezing, she said to herself in a sobbing voice, "Bastard. Idiot. Stupid pig. You have the guts to become a god. But you don't have the guts to come and marry me. Bastard. Coward. Coward. I hate you." Crystal tears fell down drop by drop, and the grievances in her heart finally made Princess Anna cry. She squeezed the cloth doll that looked like Soren hard, as if this would make her feel better. She didn't understand why she threw away her pride as a princess for him, but that bastard coward didn't even dare to see her. She just felt very wronged in her heart. She wanted to rush over and bite that bastard to death. Princess Royal stood in the hall and sighed faintly. As the most powerful protector of Arendelle, as long as she wanted, Every move in the palace could not be hidden from her perception. She slowly walked towards Princess Anna. The girl seemed to have heard the footsteps. She put away the cloth doll with a flustered expression, then wiped her tears casually. When she turned around, she was already smiling. Princess Anna glanced at the invitation in Princess Royal's hand and said in an expectant voice, "Sister. You will go. Right?" Even if that man treated her like this, she still hoped that Princess Royal could stand on his side. Alas! Princess Royal couldn't help but sigh. She reached out and took Princess Anna into her arms, and said faintly, "Silly girl." Chapter 5:19. Finally, he left this plain. When Sauron walked out of this barren plain, what appeared in front of him was a huge abyss fault. Below it was hot magma, and in the distance was the flowing Styx. The plain of 10,000 abyss was the top of countless levels of the abyss. This was a barren land where not even a blade of grass grew, and it was covered in thick dust. It was roasting under the dark red sun that was like hell. There were 3 landforms in the dusty plain, a huge abyss on the surface, a huge steel fortress, and the Styx. The only master here was the demon king of wind, Pazuzu. As the oldest demon of Orbis, it chose to be neutral in the battle between the Tana-Re demons and the Orbis demons. This powerful demon lord rarely cared about other things. What it was most interested in was luring others to fall, especially an upright paladin. For this reason, it would even do its best to help the paladin when the paladin called for it. The demon king of wind rarely appeared in the eyes of ordinary demons, and it seemed that it rarely participated in the Abyss Blood War. It was just the invisible supreme ruler of this land. The evolution of power was close to the limit. Sauron killed a lot of dretches along the way. Now his attributes had become: name, Sauron. Race, demon. Form, dretch, grade 1, attributes, strength 14, dexterity 12, constitution 16, intelligence 10, wisdom 12, charm 12. Alignment, lawful evil. Note, other demons will be slightly hostile to your actions. Health, 25-25. Demonic power, 72100. Skills, sneak 105, listen 70, detect 70, search 30. Abilities, demon claws, +1 natural magic weapon, demon skin, damage reduction +5, demon resistance. Abilities, multi-attack. Spell-like abilities, fear, once a day, stinking cloud, once a day, telepathy. The growth of the demon's power was very interesting. It seemed that in the midst of killing, their abilities could be improved comprehensively. Sauron was close to the strongest form of the Dretch. If he wanted to further improve his strength, there were only 2 ways. The first was to become a professional. Even demons could also become professionals and learn the abilities of many professions, but it took a lot of time. It was more difficult for a demon to become a professional than other creatures. The second was to evolve into another form. Sauron had to kill some powerful enemies in order to accumulate more demon bloodline power and complete a true mutation. Evolve into a succubus, Hezru, Vrok, or other mid-level demon forms. If Sauron did not like to transform into a demon in human form, he could also use the power of his demon bloodline to transform into a demon-hunting spider or a demon-hunting spider. He could even turn into an abyssal demon bat. There seemed to be countless possibilities in the genes of demons. It was not difficult to change forms during evolution. Sauron needed the power of the demon bloodline as a catalyst. The natural weakness of the Dretch was too obvious. Even if he was about to break through, Sauron still only had 25 HP. A steel fortress could be seen in the distance. There was only a narrow passage in the abyssal fault. Sauron knew very well what kind of fate awaited him if he left this desolate plain. A cannon fodder. As long as it was a Dretch that came out of the rift plain, their fate was to be cannon fodder. The hot magma flowed along the fault. Sauron had just approached the steel fortress when a succubus appeared in front of him. "You have been recruited." The succubus raised a long whip with metal barbs and hit the ground in front of Sauron. In the dust, it said in a proud voice, "Despicable wretch. You are lucky to be recruited by the 7th Legion of the Succubus Queen. Fight hard. If you can survive, you will be rewarded." She did not ask for Sauron's opinion at all. Intermediate demons had absolute dominance over lower demons. As long as Sauron expressed a little unwillingness, the other party would kill him on the spot. The 7th Legion of the Succubus Queen was recruiting cannon fodder. For a lower dretch, the succubus in front of him was too lazy to use charm. This kind of cannon fodder was not worthy of being charmed by her. She needed to recruit more powerful demon cannon fodder. As one of the most powerful demon lords in the Abyss, the Succubus Queen was naturally the main force of the Abyss blood war. The blood war here had never really stopped, and new demons were recruited every day. However, the Succubus Queen was very smart. She would train the cannon fodder that survived the cruel blood war as elites and let them go to her base camp. The blood war was a meat grinder. No matter how powerful a demon was, there was a possibility of falling. The Succubus Queen had always been the main participant in the blood war, but her strength did not decrease at all. On the contrary, it was growing little by little. The figure of a Hezru appeared. Its chaotic and crazy pupils glanced at Sauron. It seemed to dislike this little guy very much and wanted to trample him to death. But it could not do that yet. Because this was its cannon fodder. A new battle was about to begin, but the opponent was not the Baator Inferno, but the army of the 422nd floor of the Abyss, the Knoll King, Yeenagu. The demon army was always fighting among themselves. Many demon lords had never stopped fighting. Naturally, their demon army was also constantly frictional. In the depths of the Abyss, the army of the Succubus Queen and the army of the Knoll King fought. This battle spread to the plain of 10,000 Abyss. The Succubus commander here decided to find some trouble for the other party. Even if the next blood war with the devil was about to break out, they still decided to attack their old opponent first. Crazy? Yes. This was the Abyss. Sauron's figure entered the barracks with a group of dretches. In front of him was a huge steel fortress with many war machines placed in it. Although the demons relied on their huge numbers to win, the Succubus Queen valued weapons more. The barracks were in a mess. Sauron even saw a Hezru fighting with another Hezru. It was a real battle, and the loser was likely to die at the hands of the other party. No one stopped it. On the contrary, there were succubus officers watching with interest. Most of the officers here were succubus, among which women accounted for the largest proportion. The number of male succubus was quite small. Because the succubus was a Tanakh demon evolved from a woman, the characteristics of the soul could easily affect the form of the demon. Perhaps a creature like a trap had a greater chance of becoming a male succubus. Just like Sauron, it was almost impossible for him to evolve into the form of a succubus. A group of dretches was driven into the barracks. What they saw in front of them was chaos. They did not look like an army at all. Instead, they looked like a group of mobs. Except for the large number, they had no advantage at all. In the evening, before the start of the battle, the dretches were assigned some food. A large group of dretches scrambled for it, and some demons even fought with each other. Facing such a situation, Sauron did not hesitate to raise his finger and directly released a spell. Fear. It was a very low-level spell-like ability, but it was very useful against these dretches. A large group of cowards were scared and ran around. The movement here attracted the attention of the succubus officer. She glanced at Sauron with a little surprise, then took out a dagger and threw it in front of Sauron. She nodded and said, "Very good. From now on, you are their leader." Sauron was promoted from the lowest level of cannon fodder to the lowest level of cannon fodder leader. Was it crazy? That's right. The appointment of a demon was that simple. This was the bottomless abyss, the most chaotic and evil place. The order of the mortal world was often a joke here. The preferences of demons could not be inferred with common sense. Sauron was recruited, and Sauron was promoted on the first day. However, These were not important. What was important was that he could survive the battle tomorrow with the demon army controlled by the Gnoll King, Yeenagu, so that he could barely enter the ranks of intermediate cannon fodder. Except for some lucky ones, most demons had to start their career as cannon fodder. Chapter 520. The next day came quickly. It seemed that the succubus commander had temporarily changed the battle plan and was ready to reduce the scale of the battle. They planned to send people to attack a small stronghold of the Gnoll King Yeenagu on the 10,000 Abyss Plain. After removing this stronghold, they would conduct the next test. For this sudden change of plan, the other demons basically had no objection. Only Sauron could not help but frown as he felt that there seemed to be something wrong. Yesterday, it seemed like they were launching a large-scale attack, but today, they were only probing on a small scale. Something must have happened. The commander of the demon army was a Glabrizu. A powerful demon with a challenge rating of about 15, with 31 points of strength and constitution. The Glabrizu had sharp violet eyes and dark brown and black skin. It was about 5 meters tall when it stood, and its weight was more than 5,500 pounds. This demon liked to deceive rather than fight, but its ability should not be underestimated because it was a powerful demon that was proficient in cleave, advanced cleave, multi-strike, fierce attack, and other abilities. It could be said that even Sauron's main body would have to spend a little effort to deal with it. Because it was a super-large Glabrizu, its basic life was 18 points. If Sauron did not intend to change the form of a demon, then it could also accumulate strength to evolve into a small, medium, or large dretch. In this case, its vitality would continue to increase, and its basic life would increase little by little. This was how the Mother of Worms was born. As a super-large abyss worm, the Mother of Worms' basic life was as high as 36 points, and it was quite difficult to kill it. The evolution of the body would increase one's attributes, but there would also be a corresponding punishment. Because the larger the body, the slower the movement, and the slower the reaction speed, but the strength attribute would be significantly increased. Sauron's demon army was sent to the battlefield. The Glabrizu commander's deputies were 5 Vroks and some Hezru. Sauron was surprised to find that there was no trace of succubus, which made his heart skip a beat. Something is wrong. Sauron quietly took a step back and murmured, as the demon army of the succubus queen, "There is no succubus in this battle. Could it be? We're just cannon fodder? Or is it a bait to lure the enemy?" Demons were simple-minded. At least, most demons were affected by their chaotic nature. They were not as cunning as demons. In front of Sauron was a group of excited Hezru, as if they were very happy to have a battle and did not realize how dangerous their situation was. There was something strange about all of this. Sauron was even more certain that they were bait, but he did not know what the succubus army's backup plan was. The demon army soon set off. The Glabrizu walked at the front like a giant. Behind them were some Vroks. Because of their physique and natural fighting ability, the Hezru had always been the vanguard of the demon army. They were the best cannon fodder. A Hezru could attract enough firepower in battle. Behind them were large groups of dretches, quasits, and abyssal lurkers. These low-level demons were basically useless. A single Hezru could easily slaughter hundreds of thousands of low-grade fiends. The march did not last long. The demons did not seem to have any military orders. They only received 2 orders, one was attack, and the other was retreat. Sauron walked at the back of the team. He could not understand the demons' thoughts at all because some demons were happy because of the arrival of the battle, and some demons were frightened because of the arrival of the battle. Since ancient times, chaos has always produced fools. Sauron was now mixed in with a large group of fools. He did not know what kind of battle would happen next. If the situation was not right, he planned to find a chance to slip away. Soon, an army camp appeared in front of them. Sauron thought that they would have some kind of tactical plan, but in fact, he was overthinking it. With the roar of attack, the Hezru rushed forward with a roar. Sauron really wanted to give them some useful tips, but he knew that as a dretch, if he dared to do so, he would only be trampled to death by the high-grade fiends. A stench filled the air. The Hezra turned on their natural ability. They looked like frogman monsters. During the battle, their skin would secrete a stinky gas. Any enemy close to them must undergo a compulsory test of immunity. Otherwise, even demons would be affected by the nausea effect. This kind of top-level cannon fodder was really ugly. A group of crazy chaotic fools fought together. As a result, they could only fight head-on. The Hezra rushed to the front as the vanguard, followed by the Dretches with small arms and legs, and other low-grade fiends. The Glabrezu commander was not in a hurry to fight in person, and the other middle-grade fiends were more behind to supervise the battle to ensure that no cowards would run away. This is King Chaotic Battle. Sauron seemed to be a little desperate about the commanding art of the demons. No wonder they had dozens of times the number of demons, but they were still beaten by the demons after so many years. This kind of commanding ability was simply looking for abuse. However, this also proved that Sauron's choice of the abyss was correct because only here could he have the opportunity to rise rapidly. As long as he survived the most difficult early stage, he could easily enter the ranks of the high-grade fiends. Because he had enough confidence in defeating these fools. The army did not have many symbols. In the demon army of Yeenagu, the king of gnolls, the main composition was gnolls, ghouls, undead, and various demons. The dark gnolls from the abyss were among them. Even in the bottomless abyss, they were quite a difficult opponent. The ghouls faced the Hezra head-on. The commander of the enemy stronghold was a gnoll general with a three-headed flail. It had been watching the Glabrezu in the distance. As long as the Glabrezu did not attack, it had no intention of attacking for the time being. The battle was quite fierce. Both sides were tangled together, and the crazy nature of the demons was quickly stimulated by the blood. However, Sauron immediately realized that he had overestimated the demons because as the battle really broke out, a more desperate fact appeared in front of him. The Dretches around him were fighting among themselves. Both armies had a large number of low-grade demons as cannon fodder, and many of these low-grade demons were temporarily recruited. That was to say, many of the low-grade demons were gathered together recently. They were not familiar with each other, and there were no obvious signs. You are a Dretch, I am also a Dretch. Who knows which side you are on? Anyway, I don't care so much. Let's kill you first. That's right. The Dretches were fighting among themselves. Not only the Dretches under Zorro's command, but even the Dretches on the Gnoll's side could not differentiate between friend and foe. They just swarmed and fought. It was a scene that could not be looked at directly. Sauron had never seen such an army. If it was on the battlefield of the Abyss Blood War, maybe they could still distinguish between demons and devils, but in this situation, they were simply fighting among themselves. Sauron was almost speechless. In this case, what was the point of commanding? He simply sneaked into the crowd, regardless of whether they were friends or foes, and when he saw someone injured, he would go up and kill them. Anyway, it was already chaotic. Was it crazy? That's right. This was the bottomless abyss. After Sauron killed 20 or 30 Dretches in a row, the nearby Dretches finally learned their lesson. The Dretches in his camp began to move closer to him, and the Dretches in the enemy camp gradually fled from him. However, right at that moment, a loud noise rang out beside him. A Hezra demon with crimson eyes and a fiend shrouded in flames approached. The commander of the Dretch army, the Hezru that he saw yesterday. Now it was seriously injured, and there were burn marks all over its body. In front of it was an advanced flaming demon. The initial form of a Baelor. Chapter 521. The Hezru were excellent cannon fodder. Although their strength was only around 21 points, their constitution was close to 30 points. The Hezru could weigh more than 750 pounds. Although they were not as strong as the large demons, they were still a great threat in a battle. The Hezru that was leading Sauron was an advanced demon. It was a large demon that weighed more than 1,200 pounds. It looked like a small giant. Unfortunately, it was in a very sorry state because its body looked like an upright frog. Now, it looked like it had been roasted over a fire. Its disgusting skin was full of charred charcoal. The Hezru's opponent was a flaming demon, a very rare demon. Under normal circumstances, the demon's evolution path was like this: Dretch, Tana, Abyss Lurker, Quasit, Succubus, Tana, Vrak, Tana, Hezru, Tana, Glabrizu, Tana, Soul Judgment, Tana, Six-Armed Naga, Tana, Baler, Tana. This was the evolution of the humanoid demons. Other than that, there were also the dangerous demon-hunting spiders and demon-hunting spiders. Balers were the most powerful high-tier fiends. However, Balers were not Balers. They were the most special type of fiend in the abyss because they had a terrifying source of power in their bodies. The power of fire and destruction. In the abyss, only one flame Baler would be born out of 100 Balers. If the Baler that Soren had encountered before was pulled out to fight, it could wipe out both sides on the battlefield, whether it was the Succubus Legion or the Null Legion. This was because the Flame Baler was one of the few high-grade demons that could directly challenge the Abyss Lord, and could even defeat the Abyss Lord. There were only two ways to evolve into a Flame Baler. The first was to evolve into a legendary Baler, and then find a way to evolve into a Flame Baler. The second way was to evolve into an extremely rare flaming demon, and then directly enter the legendary realm in one go. At this time, the flaming demon would evolve into a legendary, Flame Demon. Finally, the Balers fused with the destructive power of the Balers and became Balers that were close to the power of high-tier legends. Sauron was very clear about the power of the Baler. If it hadn't been sealed for a long time, its strength would have been severely affected, and it would have been heavily injured. He probably wouldn't have had any chance of winning at that time. Even if Soren appeared in his true form in the form of a deity, his chances of winning against the Baler with its full power were not high. A real Baler would have a monster level of 25 and a challenge rating of 20. If it evolved into a special class such as Beheader or Executioner, then the Baler would have the power to challenge the gods. Sauron had an impulse in his heart. He wanted to try and see if he could kill this flaming demon. If he succeeded, perhaps he could step onto the path of becoming a Baler, which was much more promising than becoming a succubus, a Vrak, or a Hezru. This way, he wouldn't have to try the most dangerous path of becoming a slaughterer. Becoming a slaughterer was the last option. Sauron was a little worried about the price of becoming a slaughterer. The surrounding temperature began to rise. In the miserable screams, many dretches near the flaming demon were directly burned to death. As a low-tier flame demon, the flaming demon's body was surrounded by terrifying heat. It could deal 5 to 10 fire damage to nearby enemies per second. With the poor vitality of the dretches, they would all die within 2 seconds of standing around the flaming demon's body. The flames of the flaming demon could cover a distance of 5 meters. These low-tier dretches couldn't even stand around its body. The possibility of killing it was infinitely close to zero. Sauron could only stand around its body for about 5 seconds. So if he wanted to fight, he had to kill it in one blow. From the current situation, it was almost impossible for the Hezru to defeat the flaming demon in front of him. The difference in injuries between the two was too great. The Hezru was close to a seriously injured state, but the flaming demon was only slightly injured. As long as he was close to the flaming demon's body, the Hezru would continue to suffer damage. If only I had icing death. Sauron couldn't help but have a pity in his heart. If he could have the legendary curved sword, he wouldn't have to worry about the burning damage on the flaming demon's body. This was the most dangerous and fatal point of the flaming demon. As long as it was not a creature immune to fire, they would be incinerated continuously. But speaking of which, even if he left icing death here, he probably wouldn't be able to use it in his current demon form. He might even be injured by icing death. This legendary curved sword was not simple. It was a weapon with spirituality and could even fight automatically. It was just that it was not very good at fighting automatically. There were large scorched marks on the ground, and a lot of dretches died at once. Sauron could not help but move away. He didn't want to be burned to death before he got close to the enemy. It seemed that there were allies who noticed the situation here. If the Hezra died, the battle on this side would be defeated. So under the command of the Glabrizu, a powerful demon quickly came to support. Four-armed snake demon. Challenge rating 12, the snake demon was also a special kind of demon in the abyss. It belonged to a very powerful demon evolution route. Soren had spent a lot of effort to deal with ordinary snake demons. The four-armed snake demon in front of him was obviously more powerful. It held 4 two-handed swords at the same time, and when it swung it was like a storm. It had a powerful multi-attack talent, a top-notch multi-weapon combat skill, and its natural arms allowed it to use 4 weapons at the same time. When it fought, it was almost watertight. No other demon could rush in front of it. Snake-type creatures had amazing sprinting and explosive power. The four-armed snake demon swooped down and cut a bloody path. In an instant, it was in front of the flaming demon. The 4 swords swept over at the same time, almost blocking all the front angles. The snake demon was also considered by Sauron to be an advanced demon form. The 6-armed snake demon was a very powerful high-grade demon. It was also the most terrifying war machine in the abyss. In such a battle, the 6-armed snake demon was simply invincible. It could be said that it could crush any enemy weaker than itself. A 6-armed snake demon could even fight against several demons of similar strength because its arms were too powerful. 3 heads and 6 arms. Although it was missing 2 heads, 6 arms were not a joke. In the future, if it could go further, the 6-armed snake demon could also evolve into an 8-armed snake demon. This was a terrifying demon in the legends. In the abyss, even the lords of the abyss were very afraid of it. To some extent, the 8-armed snake demon was the most terrifying warrior in the abyss. Note, the equipment worn by the 6-armed snake demon was determined by the number of arms. These equipment included weapons, swords, bracelets, wrist guards, rings, and so on. Because they were born with more arms, the racial talent of the snake demon determined that they could use additional equipment easily and without any impact. A well-equipped and wealthy 6-armed snake demon was a nightmare for many high-grade demons. That's because you can't imagine how terrifying a snake demon with a legendary ring on all 6 arms is. Clang! 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 The snake demon in front of Sauron was obviously a poor demon because it only held 4 swords. At the same time, only the top 2 arms were wearing extraordinary wrist guards. As for the extremely rare enchanted rings, basically only a small number of demons could have them. There were not many wizards in the abyss. Most of the demons only knew how to destroy. It was basically a pipe dream to ask them to make all kinds of top-grade equipment. The 4-armed snake demon joined the battle. Soon, the situation in front of him was gradually reversed. The fire demon was a little powerless facing 2 enemies at the same time. Its injuries were also getting worse little by little. Sauron slowly moved his feet, holding a rare grade dagger in his hand, waiting for an opportunity to appear. Chapter 522. The battle was still going on. Sauron was waiting for an opportunity to appear. Whether it was stabbing the fire demon or the 4-armed snake demon, it seemed to be acceptable to him because the Baelor's powerful strength could help him quickly rise to the ranks of the demon lords, and the 6-armed snake demon's ability could allow Soren's dual-wielding skills to be perfectly displayed. One was a very powerful demon bloodline, and the other was an advanced form that could inherit part of the fighting skills and strength of the original body. In terms of overall strength in the future, the gap was actually not that big. Sauron inherited the fighting skills of the curved sword and the dual-wielding skills. The advanced form of the snake demon could help him easily recover these abilities, and even further master the ability of multi-attack and multi-wielding. From the perspective of the bloody battle in the bottomless abyss, the advanced form of the snake demon was basically not afraid of being surrounded by enemies. With Sauron's ability, he would basically die no matter how many people came. Of course. If he could choose, he would still prefer the path of the Baler because the Baler had a powerful teleportation ability. After all, the snake demon was still a warrior. Although it had the spell-like abilities of the demons, there was still a huge gap between the snake demon and the Baler. Basically, at Sauron's level, what he pursued was not pure physical strength. Of course, if any snake demon could become a legendary sacred swordsman, it would be a nightmare and disaster for the entire multiverse. The most terrifying physical strength hypothesized in the past. It was the supergiant six-armed snake demon plus legendary sword saint plus multi-attack plus multi-wielding plus aura / plus critical strike plus legendary battle skills plus epic strength plus insight weakness plus whirlwind, theoretically speaking. This kind of physical strength could almost sweep the entire multiverse because the physical strength of the snake demon made up for the weakness of the sword saint's defense. The weakness of the sword saint could also be compensated by wearing bracers, rings, and so on the 6 arms. It was almost a perfect combination of all aspects. The only flaw was that it was basically impossible to achieve. Because of the chaotic nature of the snake demon, it was almost impossible to embark on the path of the sword saint. Note, the sword saint could not wear armor, but could wear bracers, rings, and other equipment. The extra arms of the snake demon would not be affected by wearing too many accessories. The battle was still going on. However, something unexpected seemed to have happened on the side of the battlefield. All of a sudden, the entire battle became a little chaotic. The 4-armed snake demon seemed to have realized something, and its attacks became even more frenzied. It was as if it wanted to kill the flame demon in front of it. Sauron could not see what was going on the other side. Whether it was perception or vision, the Dretch's height of more than 1 meter was simply a handicap. This made Sauron even more determined to break through as soon as possible. He had to seize the opportunity in front of him. The chaos spread even further. It seemed that the enemy's reinforcements had arrived, and the demon army on their side gradually showed signs of defeat. Sauron could not see the situation on the battlefield because his field of vision was too small, but judging from the scattered Dretches on the side, Yenagu's reinforcements seemed to be large. The Lord of the Abyss controlled both the gnolls and the ghouls, as well as many demons that he had recruited. Although his personal strength was not considered top-notch in the bottomless abyss, the scale of the Devil Legion was quite large. The chaotic nature of the demons had made the battle unpredictable. The Abyss never lacked good commanders, but there was a lack of enough execution power here. Some orders were given well, but when they were executed, it was completely different. Many of the silly demons either rushed forward or retreated. The weaker demons were frightened, while the stronger demons rushed directly into the enemy's ranks. The current situation was developing like this. The Hezru rushed into the Gnoll army, the Dretches were constantly retreating, and the enemies on the opposite side were mixed with their own allies. It was precisely because of this that many Lords of the Abyss gave up on large-scale armed demons and only relied on cannon fodder to fight. The real elites were rarely deployed on the battlefield. The flame demons' injuries were getting worse and worse. There were not many Dretches that could still stand near Sauron. The Hezra gradually retreated because of serious injuries, leaving only the 4-armed snake demon to fight with the flame demon. From the current situation, the 4-armed snake demon had a higher chance of winning because the flame demon was about to die. Boom! A violent explosion came from the side. As if it was forced by the 4-armed snake demon in front of it, the flame demon's body suddenly burned violently. Its body gradually expanded, and terrible flames raged in all directions. It wanted to self-destruct. As the initial form of the Baler, although the flame demon did not have the ability to self-destruct, it could self-destruct before it died and dragged the enemy down with it. The 4-armed snake demon's injuries were already very serious. In this case, if it was affected by the self-destruction of the flame demon, it would basically die. Now, Sauron's figure flew out, almost squeezing out all his potential. At this moment, for him, it was a gamble. If he won, he could get the possibility of becoming a Baler. If he lost, this demon's body would be completely destroyed. Not only would all the arrangements in the Abyss be ruined, but his body would also be seriously injured and fall into a weakened state for a long time. When it was time to fight, he had to fight. In the scorching flames, Sauron rushed directly to the flame demon in front of him. The terrible flames burned its skin. If it weren't for the fact that demons had a certain degree of fire resistance, perhaps his whole body would have been burned. The severe pain stimulated his nerves. Sauron's pupils slightly turned blood red. He swung his dagger, jumped up, and stabbed directly at the neck of the flame demon in front of him. Shoo! The dagger flashed a cold light, and then Sauron slashed again. In this case, there was no way out. If the flame demon didn't die, he must die. Even if he missed, he wouldn't be able to escape. The damage of the explosion would directly kill him. The dretch was too weak. Hot blood gushed out. The blood of the flame demon was like magma, directly igniting Sauron's body. At this moment, he seemed to have fallen into madness. He kept stabbing the flame demon with his dagger until his body completely turned into a burning fireball. A scorching force emerged. With the death of the flame demon, the self-destruction that was about to be completed suddenly seemed to be drained of all power. Flames rushed to Sauron's body. His body began to burn. Chapter 523. Pain, scorching heat, burning. Sauron's body turned into a burning human figure. The hot blood of the fire demon flowed on his skin, and then seeped into his body little by little along the mysterious demon tattoo. Then there was even more terrible pain. It was as if the burning was not only inside the skin, but also his muscles, blood, bones, and internal organs. Sauron's breathing was accompanied by little sparks, and his bones made a crackling sound. His whole body quickly became almost the size of an adult. A row of data appeared in front of him: middle-grade fire demon killed. Extracting target's demon bloodline. You've gained 36 demonic power. The current body cannot absorb soul energy. Soul energy conversion. Feedback 1200 slaughter EXP to the body. Demon bloodline activated. A mutation occurred in his own body. Dretch, form ability improved. Demon bloodline activated. Mutation occurred. Insufficient energy. Mutation failed. Transformation of demonic power. Mutation occurred in the original form. Dretch, form changed from a small creature to a medium-sized creature. Base HP increased to 10. Life force of demon form strengthened. Unknown bloodline mutation. Dretch, form has undergone a mutation. Self-transformed into a demon form. Mastered the special talent, flame body. Mutation occurred in my bloodline. Dretch, form evolved into Dretch, elite form. Not enough energy. Sauron soon found that the power provided by the fire demon could not make him evolve into a new fire demon form, and this demonic power mutated in his original Dretch form, directly causing his body to change from a small creature to a medium-sized creature close to the size of an adult. A scorching power was still pouring into his body, and a mysterious demon tattoo appeared on Sauron's dark red skin. His whole body was constantly burning, and the scorching aura rushed in all directions. Elite form. This seemed to be an ability that only monsters could have. Some powerful monsters could continue to evolve on the original basis and eventually become a boss monster. For example, on the second floor of the abyss, there was a legendary Dretch. It was a powerful boss monster. Tap. A foot stepped out of the raging flames. Then, Sauron, whose body had been enlarged to nearly twice its original size, walked out of the explosion. His entire person seemed to have changed. There were many mysterious demonic runes on his dark red skin. There were still flames burning on the surface of his arms and body, but they did not seem to affect him at all. His entire body was emitting a scorching aura, and his pupils seemed to be burning with flames. His breath was accompanied by rolling heat waves, and the soil under his feet gradually became charred black. Body of flames. Although he did not evolve into a flaming demon, he had a new innate ability, flaming body. Body of Flames, innate ability. Due to some special mutation, he has a powerful body of flames. From now on, you will be immune to all fire damage. After fully activating this innate ability, you will be surrounded by raging flames. Any target near you will receive 10 fire damage. When activated, this ability ignores both friend and foe. The power of the flames will burn everything around you. The most basic ability of the Baler. Although Sauron could not compare to the 30 to 50 fire damage per second of the Baler, as an advanced demon, he already had the power of fire. In this case, he was equivalent to the king of the Dretches. Even if there were thousands of ordinary Dretches, they would not be able to threaten him. Sorin's figure completely appeared. In the raging flames, the Dretch form was reborn. A pair of demon horns appeared on his forehead, and a pair of demon wings appeared on his back because of the mutation. However, the demon wings were not complete at all, and it was basically impossible for him to fly. At most, they were like some advanced lesser demons, flapping their wings to increase their speed when sprinting, allowing them to jump a little further. Sauron still retained the general form of a Dretch, but in many aspects, he had the characteristics of an intermediate demon. Demon horns, demon wings. These two were the most obvious signs. Unfortunately, the demon wings were more like a decoration than a succubus. A surge of power emerged. After completing the mutation, Sauron was directly promoted to Grade 2, and his creature level reached 8. At this moment, his data page had become Name, Sauron Race, Demon Form, Dretch, Grade 2, Elite, Medium Creature, Level, Creature Level 8 Attributes, Strength 16, Dexterity 14, Constitution 18, Intelligence 12, Wisdom 14, Charm 15. Alignment, Lawful Evil. Note, other demons will be slightly hostile to your actions. Health, 3680 Demonic Power, 01000. Skills, Sneak 125, Literacy 50, Intimidation 50, Spellcraft 50, Use Magic Device 50, Listen 75, Detect 75, Search 50 Abilities, Body of Flames, Demon Claws, +1 Natural Magic Weapon, Demon Skin, Damage Reduction +5, Demon Resistance. Abilities, Multi-Attack. Spell-like abilities, Fear, once a day, Stinking Cloud, once a day, Summon Demon, Telepathy. His strength gradually increased. The mutation ability of the demon gene directly improved Sauron's basic attributes with the advancement, and the further increase in size also strengthened his strength and vitality. The battlefield was quiet for a while. It was not rare for demons to have a mutation, but it happened more often in bloody battles with devils because bloody battles seemed to make it easier for them to absorb the enemy's power. In this small-scale battle, Sauron's mutation was undoubtedly quite eye-catching. The probability of a Dretch being able to advance was less than 1%. The scene of Sauron's advancement was indeed a bit eye-catching, so soon after he completed the advancement, there were enemies who wanted to rush over to kill him. The situation in front of him. Sauron turned around and ran without hesitation. What a joke! He had just advanced, and his abilities and body were not familiar yet. At first, he had the body of a child, but now he had the body of an adult. His combat power would definitely be affected, and his vitality had not recovered to full. He would be crazy to continue fighting with them. The best way now was, let this group of chaotic and crazy demons continue to fight to the death, and he would find a safe place to rest first. Running away after acting cool, so exciting. Chapter 524. After temporarily retreating from the battlefield, the situation in front of him was much clearer. A group of ghouls came out from the flank of the demon army. Sorin didn't know how they came out. Maybe there was a teleportation circle in the camp. The attack of the ghouls directly destroyed the flank of the succubus army. When Sauron retreated to the rear, the demons in his camp had already been defeated. Originally, the demons' command was very chaotic, and now the enemy had a great advantage in numbers. Basically, the low-grade demons began to swarm away, and the ghouls and gnolls were chasing after them. The whole battle was like a farce. Only the number of demons was quite large. Just this small conflict had mobilized tens of thousands of demons. If the demon army in front of him was really pulled out, even without command, they could easily defeat the main army of a kingdom. After all, in the abyss, even the lowest level dretch had 2 creature levels equivalent to advanced professions. The biggest characteristic of the abyssal war was the huge amount of cannon fodder. The scale of tens of thousands was like a battle between 2 neighboring towns. Only when the scale reached 100,000 could it be considered a decent battle. When the scale reached 1 million, it could barely be considered a real battle. Of course, in such a huge number, most of them were low-grade demons. The real decisive combat power was the middle and high-grade demon elites. The battle continued until now. The demon army of both sides had suffered heavy losses, and the casualties had reached more than 5,000. Some died in the hands of the enemy, and some died in the hands of their own people. There was no other way. This was the situation in the abyss. On the battlefield, not only did you have to be careful of the enemy's attack, but you also had to be careful of the Hezra that were fighting. They would not accidentally trample you to death. Just like what Sauron saw, a demon warlock actually threw a big fireball into the crowd. Although it killed a lot of enemies, it also killed a lot of their own people. Sauron, who had just advanced, was still quite eye-catching. But at this time, the demon warlord did not care because the number of enemies in front of him was close to double. These demon warlords had already run away. The Glabrezu general did not participate in the battle from beginning to end. When he saw that the situation was not right, he immediately began to retreat. As soon as he retreated, it was a big defeat. Behind them were the howling Hezru, as well as many ghouls and gnolls. Those who were slow to escape were either captured or killed. Is this a farce? Sauron had only this thought in his mind, but now he had to run. Intuition told him that things were not that simple. The succubus queen had always been very good at playing tricks. The commander of the demon army was at least a nun, so it was impossible for her to send a group of people to die so easily. Sure. Soon, smoke rose from further away. It seemed that another battle had broken out. At this time, the Glabrezu in front finally stopped, then turned around and rushed directly to the Gnoll army. Then he saw the light of a teleportation circle on the side. The first to appear was a succubus wearing metal-tight armor. In the entire abyss, only the succubus could meet the aesthetic standards of humans. These demons born from the abyss wore metal armor seductively, and the metal boots made of black iron reflected light. They were neatly arranged in a battle formation. The one at the front seemed to be a succubus executioner. The long whip with metal barbs in her hand directly hit the enemy until the bones were white. The figure of the berserk demons appeared. Their heavy bodies began to crash into the enemy. The succubus warlock cast one spell after another, and the demons with weak will were charmed on the spot and rushed to their allies. The succubus army that appeared by teleportation began to counterattack. They neatly arranged in a circle and divided the battlefield into 2. It seems that the legend of the succubus queen deviating from the Order faction is true. Sauron only took a glance and realized that the battle command and military discipline of the 2 sides were not at the same level at all. The legend of the succubus queen deviating from the Order faction should be true, because the army was the embodiment of absolute order. It was because the succubus queen began to lean towards the Order faction that she could train such a powerful army and rise rapidly in the abyss. With the innate abilities of the succubi, if they fought in a messy manner like other demons, they would probably be tortured to death. The light of the divine spell appeared. A power full of blasphemy fell on Sauron's body and instantly healed part of his injuries. Shock. There was a trace of shock in Sauron's eyes. During the Avatar crisis, he had not seen the succubus use the divine spell because the gods had lost their power at that time. But now the Avatar crisis had not completely erupted. The succubus in front of him could use the divine spell, which meant that the succubus queen, Mechanutz, demon god of lust, clergy was not a joke. She could really give divine spells to the succubus who believed in her. The priests and healers appeared. Not only did the voluptuous succubus priests reduce the casualties of the demon army, they also boosted their morale to the point that they roared in unison. The appearance of the succubus priests not only boosted the morale of the demons, but also made many demons go berserk. One by one, the elite demons guarded the succubus priests. They did not directly join the battle. It seemed that there were very few succubus who had the ability to become priests. It was a very rare strategic troop class. Rays of magical light appeared one after another. The figures of the soul judgment demons also appeared on the battlefield. 3 huge demon-hunting spiders rampaged like tanks. These giant spiders weighing 6,500 pounds were simply nightmares of the low-grade demons. Their strength of more than 31 points was directly crushed. Middle and high-grade demons joined the battle and surrounded tens of thousands of enemies with less than 100 or 200 in number. The figure of a glorious nun appeared. She flew in the air and looked at her feet. It seemed that she wanted to eat all the demon army of Yinagu, the king of the gnolls. This was an encirclement battle. Even Sauron was a little surprised by such a change in the situation, but this did not prevent him from continuing to harvest heads. Body of flame. Sauron's body was burning with flames. In an instant, he turned into a burning human figure. The nearby demons kept their distance because even they would be hurt by the body of flame. Sauron's figure rushed out. This was a feeling he had never had before. It was a very refreshing battle. He only needed to avoid those powerful demons and circle around the low-grade demons a few times, and he could burn many enemies into charcoal. Chapter 525. The balance of the battle had completely tilted. Victory basically belonged to the succubus army. What they had to do next was to kill all the enemies. Sauron found that his initial judgment was wrong. In terms of large-scale battles, the Balor's group combat ability was not much weaker than the 6-armed snake demons. As long as they activated their innate ability, those cannon fodder could not even get close to them. With the Balor's fire damage of more than 30 points per second, few enemies below the higher demon level could withstand it. The only drawback was that it was not effective against the demons because many of them were immune to fire damage. That was the characteristic of the Baator Inferno. Many of the Baator Inferno's natives were not afraid of fire. Seeing that the enemy had been defeated, Sauron finally gave up on dealing with the low-grade demons and turned to target some more powerful enemies, such as a seriously injured Hezru in front of him. The flaming body drove the enemies away and also made the allies not dare to approach. Zorro easily got the chance to solo a Hezru. Facing such a huge demon, he was very cautious, because in terms of attributes, the other party still had a crushing advantage. His weapon had become a +1 rare grade longsword. There were equipment everywhere on the battlefield, but unfortunately, they were all inferior goods. The demons were still as bad as ever in making equipment for thousands of years. The +1 rare weapons that could be seen everywhere in the Baator Inferno might be a relatively rare thing in the abyss. Sometimes, the demon army's equipment needed to be purchased from the Baator Inferno through the neutral evil Onababas and night witches. Then, in a bloody battle, the demons would leave corpses and equipment all over the ground. The demons would happily accept the souls of these enemies. They would also recycle these obsolete weapons and equipment and sell them to the demon army through the night witches and Onababas, earning some shiny disaster coins, gold coins. From the current situation, the demons always had a higher chance of winning the Abyss Blood War. This was the suppression of IQ. Sauron moved around the Hezru in front of him at high speed. As an experienced rogue, he knew very well how to deal with such a large enemy. Rumble. Sure enough, the Hezru in front of him began to become impatient and attacked him first. Clang! With a splash of blood, Sauron skillfully twisted his body to avoid the attack. He then stabbed his sword into the Berserker demon's chest. A disgusting viscous liquid splashed out, and the Berserker demon let out a pained growl. The whole battle was like toying with the Hezru. The Hezru did not even hit Sauron once from the beginning to the end. If it were not for the fact that its vitality was too tenacious and its attributes were too low, it would have been killed by Sauron. By the time Sauron killed Ahezru, the battle around him was almost over. A succubus officer was looking at him with interest, his eyes filled with lust. From a demon's point of view, Sauron's advanced form looked pretty good. Paw paw paw. A crisp applause sounded. A succubus officer wearing a metal-tight armor and a pair of black iron boots came in front of Sauron. He looked at him teasingly and smiled, "Very good. From now on, you are the captain of the 16th Battalion of the Succubus Legion. Someone will assign you subordinates when we go back." The battle was over. The Succubus Legion returned with a great victory. This time, they defeated an army of their old rival, the Gnoll King, which made the demon army very happy, so rewards were quickly distributed. The hags and hags came to the steel fortress at some point. They brought wine, food, and slaves, ready to take advantage of this opportunity to make another fortune. These neutral and evil creatures had always been active between demons and demons. They always found opportunities to make money or exchange something that could make them stronger. Of course, dealing with demons was risky. Devils were very good at keeping their promises, but demons never cared so much. Therefore, the goods of the hags and hags were quite expensive. Sauron was promoted again. After returning to the steel fortress of the Succubus Legion, he had thousands of demons under him. Most of them were low-level dretches, and the only one that could be used was Ahezru. Unfortunately, the chaotic nature of the demons was not very pleasing to the eye. This Ahezru seemed to underestimate Sauron's strength. Its simple mind directly showed that it wanted to kill Sauron and replace him. It was a little speechless. Fortunately, the succubus, who were now obviously biased to the lawful camp, did not seem to be very resistant to him. There were even succubus officers who sent him a provocative invitation. Of course, this was also accompanied by the hostile eyes of other demons. Before Sauron could familiarize himself with his messy subordinates, he received a new order the next day. A bloody battle might break out. The hags and hags left the steel fortress the next day without anyone noticing. They could always avoid the bloody battle in the abyss in time. Sauron needed to command his subordinates to strengthen the defense measures. As early as hundreds of years ago, the demons had gradually lost in the bloody battle. The original battlefield was in the first layer of the Baator Inferno, and then retreated to the gap between the abyss and the Baator Inferno. Now, the main battlefield of the bloody battle was on the first layer of the abyss, 10,000 Abyss Plain. If it weren't for the powerful demon lord, the Wind Demon King, Pazuzu, Sauron even suspected that the Demon Legion could directly reach the third layer of the abyss. The demon lords who were constantly fighting among themselves could not win against the Lord of Hell, Asmodeus. This terrible existence was still accumulating strength little by little. He had gathered a large number of demons and was ready to counterattack to the deepest part of the abyss at any time. As a newly promoted demon, Sauron still could not get rid of the fate of being cannon fodder. However, if he could safely survive this bloody battle, maybe he could get rid of the fate of being cannon fodder. Of course. The premise was that the demons could defeat the devils this time. He was not sure about this at all. After all, war was not a matter of one person. His personal ability could be said to be quite insignificant in the bloody battle. However, under normal circumstances, as long as the demon army did not fight among themselves, relying on their huge number of people, they could always fight to a draw with the devils. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Sauron suddenly heard the battle alarm at night. He almost got up and got ready for battle. Then when he stepped on the wall, Sauron could not help but curse. Damn it! The black mass of ghosts in front of him was not the devil army, but countless ghouls and gnolls. The revenge of the demons. The army of the Gnoll King, Yeenagu, chose to retaliate against the succubus army at this juncture. They wanted to attack them at night to avenge the destruction of the army. At this moment, Sauron finally knew why the demons always lost. Chapter 526. In front of him were demons, gnolls, and undead. The succubus queen, Mechanut, and the Knoll king, Yeenagu, had been fighting for thousands of years, and the accumulated hatred had long been too strong to be resolved. Facing the active attack of the succubus army, the army of the Knoll king, Yeenagu did not hesitate to counterattack. The surprise attack in front of him was obviously to directly flatten this steel fortress. Judging from the number of enemies in front of him, the Knoll king, Yeenagu, mobilized nearly 100,000 demons, which had a strength gap of nearly 5 times. Each layer of the abyss was not small, it was equivalent to an independent plane. As the rulers of the bottomless abyss, many demon lords had territories larger than a continent, so they had huge populations and armies under their command. A true battle between demon lords might be comparable to a small-scale planar war. The figures of the gnolls from the abyss appeared in the darkness. These vigorous enemies had good stealth ability. By the time they were discovered, many of them had already climbed up the wall of the steel fortress. By the time Sauron arrived, the battle had already begun, and there were many demons running around in the camp. Roar! But something happened that made Sauron even more speechless. His adjutant, the Hezru, after killing an abyss gnoll, jumped down from the wall and rampaged all the way into the enemy's army. It laughed excitedly as it killed. Then it was surrounded by several ghouls and gnolls at the same time, and its injuries became more serious. Then, it died just like that. That's right. It died. What the hell? That's right, Sauron's adjutant died at the beginning of the battle. What's there to play? What made him feel even more desperate was that this kind of thing was not only happening around him. There were many middle-grade and high-grade demons in the steel fortress who rushed to the bottom of the wall to fight with the enemy. Sauron was speechless. Fortunately, the enemy's demon army was almost the same. One of the berserk demons seemed to be having a great time killing the demons, but it still wasn't satisfied even after reaching the city wall. It didn't have any intention of occupying the city wall and directly jumped into the steel fortress. Then it was a little dumbfounded because it was also surrounded by many demons. Body of flame. Sauron's dark red skin began to appear on his dark red skin, and the raging flames wrapped him in it. Then he was like a torch, causing the nearby demons to avoid him. The Balrog used a special weapon. Sauron did not have a long sword that could burn flames, so he could only temporarily use a +1 long sword against the enemy in front of him. The fire illuminated the surroundings. Zorro suddenly became very eye-catching, and then a lot of attacks came. However, perhaps he was born with a strong ability to adapt, or perhaps he had already expected such a result. Zorro quickly jumped off the wall and rushed to the enemies who had run into the camp. Running away after showing off, so exciting. Sauron seemed to be a little used to it. The demon army outside saw a human-shaped flame suddenly appear on the wall. It was so eye-catching in the dark night and looked very cool. Many demons could not help but scream and prepare to kill this guy first, but they did not expect him to turn around and shrink back. Want to run away after showing off? Not so easy. Many demons rushed towards Sauron's wall. Some even climbed up the wall and looked around for the guy who wanted to run away after showing off. After finding the target, they jumped down excitedly. Sauron never thought that his taunting ability was so powerful. Just showing up on the wall attracted 7 or 8 middle-grade demons to chase him. He did not know if these enemies did not like his cool appearance, or if they thought that killing him would bring unexpected gains. Sauron was originally in the lawful evil camp. In the bottomless abyss, it was easy to attract the hostility of demons. Now that he had a flame-like appearance, it seemed that he could attract a group of monsters. A row of data appeared in front of him, killed middle-grade Hezru. Extracting target's demon bloodline. You've gained 21 points of demon power. Current body cannot absorb soul energy. Soul energy conversion. Feedback 900 slaughter EXP to the body. Ability upgrade. Creature level increased to level 10. You've advanced to grade 3. Demon bloodline activated. A mutation has occurred in his own body. Dretch, form ability upgraded. You've automatically learned the spell-like ability, Command Demon, casting level 10, under the elite template. The effect of your spell-like ability, Summon Demon, has increased. After killing another Hezru, Sauron's creature level increased again and directly entered the ranks of grade 3 demons. The demon bloodline accumulated by Sauron was still not enough for him to undergo a mutation. It could only improve the power of the Dretch form again. However, because he had an elite template, Sauron's growth obviously exceeded the limits of ordinary Dretch. His spell-like ability was still constantly improving under the accumulation of demon bloodline. Command Demon, spell-like ability. As an elite demon, you can cast the command spell on other demons once. The casting level is equivalent to your creature level. If the command is successful, the demon will completely obey your orders, but if the spell fails, the target may launch a crazy attack on you. This spell-like ability can be used once a day. Summon Demon, spell-like ability. As an elite demon, you have the talent ability to summon more subordinates. You can summon 2 to 6 Dretch subordinates. This spell-like ability increases with your own strength. This spell-like ability can be used once a day. Command Demon. Summon Demon. If Sauron remembered correctly, before he was upgraded, his ability to summon demons was like this: Dretch can summon another Dretch, but the success rate is only about 35%. This ability is like a level 1 spell and can only be used once a day. One was a 35% chance to summon another Dretch. The other was to summon 2 to 6 Dretch subordinates directly. These were not spells at all. Under the elite form, Sauron's various abilities were quite obvious. Summon Demon. Facing such a powerful taunt ability, Sauron did not hesitate to summon a group of cannon fodder. The spell-like ability was directly imprinted in the demon's memory, just like a sorcerer's ability that they were born with. With the emergence of magic, 3 Dretch figures appeared around Sauron's body. Because of the flame body, these Dretch all hid far away, but Sauron still easily relied on his will to command them. Next were the other demons. In this situation, there was no doubt that the more cannon fodder around him, the better. It was obvious that many of the enemy demons did not like his behavior of running away after showing off. If he ran to the city wall and activated his flame body in the next battle, he might attract a group of enemies. Therefore, Sauron now planned to use the command demon to control a relatively powerful cannon fodder. At least it could help him block the enemy. However, this was also risky. After all, his own creature level was only 10. If the command failed, he might be attacked by the target. What kind of demon was more suitable? Sauron looked for allies around him. It could not be too powerful because the success rate of command was very low, and the risk of failure was too high. It could not be too weak either. Otherwise, it would waste a precious spell-like ability, and it would not be of much use. Soon, Sauron found a good target. It was a violent abyss demon with a challenge rating of 5 and a creature level of about 10. It was a large demon with a relatively low IQ, but its skin was thick and tough. It could become a kind of cannon fodder for Hezru. If it was it, Sauron's success rate might be 50%. Chapter 527. The first layer of the abyss, the 10,000 abyss plains. There was a special place in the abyss, and that was Desolate Town located in the 10,000 abyss plains. This was the seat of the power of order in the abyss. There was a balance in the entire multiverse. Even in the most chaotic places, there were seeds of order. In the most orderly places, there were also chaotic things hidden. Desolate Town was such a place. Its ruler was the powerful demon lord, Red Shroud. She was a powerful succubus sorcerer, and it was said that she was the daughter of the succubus queen, Mechanut. Desolate Town had existed in the abyss for a long time. Even though the blood war had broken out for countless years, this town was still impregnable. Occasionally, it would be attacked by the demon army, but it would be quickly taken back by the demons. Desolate Town. This town had always been the gathering point of the blood war mercenaries, a transit point for travelers who were crazy enough to explore the abyss, and the only place of trade in the abyss that had enough order. Desolate Town was formed by a series of collapsed towers. As a succubus sorcerer with unfathomable strength, Red Shroud had set up enough defensive facilities here. At the same time, the town was surrounded by trenches, city walls, spiked barricades, and other fortifications. This was the most orderly city in the abyss. There were administrative departments and security personnel. Anyone who caused trouble in public would be killed on the spot. The moat of Desolate Town was filled with the water of the Styx. It could make ordinary people lose all their memories, and most people would be injured if they were contaminated. For dimensional travelers who wanted to deal with the demons, this was a relatively safe place. Even the craziest demons would have to suppress their inner madness and show restraint on the surface. Because of the safety of this place, a large number of merchants from other dimensions poured in. They purchased all kinds of special materials from the abyss, and they also sold materials and weapons from other dimensions. This place was responsible for most of the evil transactions in the abyss, and it also brought a lot of benefits to some powerful beings. Many equipment made by the demon lords were also sold here. The currency used the most here was gold, gems, and souls. The value of the souls was the highest. Adventurers and mercenaries from other dimensions who wanted to participate in the Blood War were also recruited here. At the same time, this was also one of the gathering points of the demon army in the first layer. An endless stream of demon army would gather here. In the long history of the Blood Wars, Desolate Town was the most valuable strategic target on the first floor. During the most intense period of the war, the city had been attacked by the Demon Elite Legion more than once. The city had also changed hands several times, but in the end, it had been taken back. For the devils, seizing Desolate Town was equivalent to seizing the seat of order in the upper levels of the abyss. It would be easier for them to build a portal to the Bator Inferno, mobilize enough troops, and reduce the pressure on logistics. In addition, taking down Desolate Town and several other important locations in the first layer of the Chaos Abyss would be equivalent to order defeating chaos. The laws of the first layer of the Chaos Abyss would likely be converted to the Order faction, giving the devils an even greater advantage. Plain distortion. This was the greatest conspiracy and ambition of the demons in the past several hundred years. The bottomless abyss wasn't static. On the contrary, it was the center of the most chaotic abyss, with infinite possibilities. The Bator Inferno relied on devouring the territories of the bottomless abyss to gradually expand. The battlefield between the bottomless abyss and the Bator Inferno had been merged into the Bator Inferno, causing the size of the bottomless abyss to decrease little by little. Although this decrease was insignificant, it was something that had always happened. The devils hoped to completely occupy the first layer of the bottomless abyss. If possible, even the Lord of Hell, Asmodeus, would personally take action. This was because only the Lord of Hell, Asmodeus, could completely defeat the demon Lord of Wind, Pazuzu. In a place far away from Desolate Town, there was a huge steel fortress called the Blood War Fortress. It was once a stronghold built by the Demon Legion, but now it was the front line of the Bator Inferno. The entire Blood War Fortress was filled with countless mysterious and complicated magic circles. Fresh blood covered the ground. The air here seemed to contain some kind of power, even the laws of the plane were distorted. The power of the abyss was suppressed. The will of chaos that shrouded the entire bottomless abyss was distorted, expelled, and changed here. The devils had injected the power of order into this land. This was the most important stronghold of the devils. The Blood War Fortress was the bridgehead to conquer the entire Rift Plain. If the Demon Legion could take out the important stronghold led by Desolate Town, then the Demon Legion could change the laws of the entire plane. They could drag the Rift Plain into the Bator Inferno and turn it from chaos to order. If they succeeded, this would be a huge victory, even representing the possibility of order defeating chaos in the end. It could also end the endless bloody war in the abyss and completely defeat the bottomless abyss. Countless devils were busy in the Blood War Fortress. They were preparing for a new battle. This battle was more difficult than the ones they had encountered in the past because their opponent was the Queen of Succubus. This powerful demon lord was different from the others. The demon legion she controlled had a certain degree of discipline. If there was a large number of devils, it would be difficult for the demon legion to gain the upper hand. The Queen of Succubus was the most threatening enemy of the devils. Even if she was not in the Rift Plane, the existence of the succubus warlock, Red Shroud, was a headache for the devils. The succubus was deviating to the Order faction. The various signs in the bottomless abyss indicated the possibility of the succubus queen deviating to Order evil. Especially in a place like Desolate Town, which was filled with the power of Order, many people were certain that the Queen of Succubus had changed. However, the succubus queen seemed unwilling to submit to the Lord of Hell, Asmodeus. Any attempts by the devils to rope her in were met with the ruthless determination and counterattacks of the succubus queen. She used battle after battle to prove that she would never merge with the will of the devils. Desolate Town. The Red Shroud, or Red Shroud, was a succubus warlock who liked to wear wedding dresses. No one knew when this succubus ruled this place. It seemed that she had ruled for many years. She witnessed the rise and fall of the Blood War and possessed the status and strength of a demon lord. She was even regarded as the strongest succubus lord after the Queen of Succubus because only the power of a demon lord could suppress the devils and maintain order in Desolate Town. The origin of Red Shroud was a mystery and was even suspected to be some demon lord in disguise. However, there were also some who believed that she was born from the oldest succubus. Currently, the biggest guess was that she was most likely the daughter of the succubus queen, Mechanut. She was only responsible for the most basic gathering of people in this town and the Blood War. Red Shroud would not participate in other matters, so she did not have many enemies. Her behavior was more rational and was closer to that of the devils. With Desolate Town as the center, dozens of steel fortresses nearby were the territory of the succubus army. Red Shroud was the highest ruler of the succubus, but the actual ruler was the other daughters of the succubus queen, those powerful, Radiance nuns. The devils were trying to change the law of the plane. On the Rift Plane, because of the Blood War, the power of chaos and order intertwined. This change attracted the attention of many powerful evil gods and made them realize that the law of the plane was not completely impossible to change. In the bottomless abyss. In the Bator Inferno. Many evil gods were experimenting, trying to change their own god kingdoms into the laws they needed. This change may need the right time because it was very likely to lead to the counterattack of other demon lords or the anger of the terrible, Lord of Hell, Asmodeus. The change was hidden in many conspiracies. It seemed that in the entire bottomless abyss and the Bator Inferno, the only ones who dared to stand out and make blatant changes were the Queen of Succubus, Mechanut, and the Queen of Spiders, Lolth. One was gradually moving towards the lawful evil camp. The other was slowly moving from chaotic evil to neutral evil. The Queen of Spiders seemed to be always brewing conspiracies. She became more rational, but also more dangerous. No one knew when the change would be completed, but the Blood War had reached the current situation, and many gods realized the possibility of changing the law of the plane. Even if it required a considerable amount of power. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.